Chapter 5810. Chapter 5810. Is this where the system was born? Long Fei looked at the world in front of him with twinkling eyes. It is no exaggeration to say that at this moment, even Long Fei was a little excited. He has also thought about why the system came here countless times. In his life, the system was the key to changing his fate against the odds. If it weren't for the system, he might have died tragically in the Long family. The system has made his legendary life possible. Yes, I can feel that there are countless systems here, and there are countless systems in the Apocalypse realm. The system responded. Even at this time, the system showed its own emotions and was extremely excited. Long Fei was not surprised. I have shown my attitude very early. It is no longer cold data, but has thinking. This reminded Long Fei of artificial intelligence on Earth countless times. Perhaps the end of artificial intelligence is systems. However, Long Fei just looked down upon the system. Apocalypse realm? Does this thing need special instructions? If you had not broken through to the unique realm, you would definitely have stars in your eyes when you heard this kind of existence. But now, it's completely unnecessary. What apocalypse? One punch can blow up a bunch of people. But of course, Long Fei still had some interest. Although I don't need it now, the people in Longting do. Is there a unique system? Thinking of this, Long Fei suddenly asked. His nature is hard to change. If there really was a unique system, he would never let it go. You know, the system of the unique realm means that it can create a unique realm. But in the only realm, there's a glimmer of hope when facing the apocalypse. If it were possible, Long Fei would love to have this research and development place. He will show no mercy and sweep away everything. It's impossible. There are very few cultivators in the unique realm, but once you break through the unique realm, you will still rack your brains to study the system. The system responded, with a bit of ridicule in its voice. Long Fei's eyes dropped. But we must admit that what the system said at this time is true. So far, he has only seen a handful of undoubted realms. Of course, this does not include those he killed when he traveled through time and space and returned to the unexplored era of the world. Judging from Long Fei's current perspective, those unique realms were very flawed, and he was just killing them indiscriminately. This unique state is equivalent to nothingness. Soon, Long Fei regained his composure and said, "Then can you feel in Tion's position?" The system shook his head. "You can't sense it. This is the birthplace of the system. Even if I later get rid of the control here, the original power that formed the system is here. Any system will be suppressed in the face of this power." The system said, "The original power of the creation system?" Long Fei pondered slightly. This original world is full of mysteries. Especially at this time, Long Fei suddenly became interested in the power of the system that Master Dao said. Yes, any power, any civilization, needs the support of the original power, and the system is no exception. Including your cultivation civilization, it also needs the original power. The system explained. Long Fei pondered slightly and suddenly asked, "Then if you are allowed to swallow the power of your origin, can you transform again and reach the level of the unique realm, or even surpass the unique realm system?" The system was shocked by Long Fei's idea. He's so crazy. If this is said in other people's mouth, he will definitely sneer at it. He absolutely did not believe that anyone dared to pay attention to the original power. But when these words came out of Long Fei's mouth, he was only horrified. He believed, and Long Fei definitely has the strength to do this. In a flash of thought, he said quickly, "You must not act recklessly. This will cause this place to collapse directly. Without the support of the original power, this place will turn into nothing in an instant." The system advised. In his eyes, Long Fei was now an unstable factor. If he does break out, no one will be able to stop him. For a moment, he even regretted it, feeling that accompanying Long Fei to investigate the answer was a wrong decision. Long Fei shrugged and said nonchalantly, "That's all I said." The system's reaction was beyond Long Fei's guess. According to his understanding of the system, he will never have mercy on the real existence. But now, he is extremely concerned about it, as if he is afraid that Long Fei will do something extraordinary. But in fact, he guessed correctly. Long Fei really had the idea just now to push through. No matter what existence he faced, he wouldn't care. With the current degree of transformation of the system, if this original power is really swallowed up, it will definitely change again. But Long Fei just thought about it. He would still care about the system, and he could feel that there was indeed an incredible power here. This power is extremely mysterious, as if it is a kind of operation after data setting. The operation of the system is the compilation and arrangement of data. Therefore, Long Fei naturally connected this power with what the system calls the origin of the system. And this kind of power maintains the operation of the world in front of you. If you really use all your strength, if you try to break it with strength, everything will definitely be destroyed at that time. Thinking of this, Long Fei killed this thought simply and directly, and then looked into the distance. System, do you think they will feel my arrival? Long Fei asked. Definitely. Moreover, they must be discussing how to deal with you now. The system responded. Deal with me? Long Fei chuckled. In the past, the power of this place of origin was indeed a threat to him. But now they can't. Yes, so you must not be impulsive. If you want to know the answer, you must suppress that power. Every time you use that power, your character will change. Believe me, I am serious. Master Dao said in a solemn voice. Long Fei nodded. After so much experience, he actually already had some guesses in his mind, and he was more concerned about the system. Let's go. He said no more, let go of his thoughts, and disappeared into the vast galaxy in one step. A few breaths later, when he reappeared, he was already in front of this world. He looked at the world. This is actually a world run by pure data. Long Fei was stunned. He could guess before that the world in front of him contained an original power with data as its core. But now that he came closer, he realized that his thoughts were still too simple. This is not a star at all. Rather, it is a world composed of absolute data. Suddenly, Long Fei had a more terrifying suspicion in his mind. The world is made up of data, but what about the people in it? Is it real? Silently, Long Fei's heartbeat began to accelerate. Chapter 58:11. Chapter 58:11. As soon as this idea appeared, Long Fei felt an unprecedented sense of terror. The world in front of him brought too much impact to him. Suddenly, he thought of the many scientific conjectures he had seen on Earth. Genetic data, memorized data. If it weren't for the scene he saw before him, Long Fei wouldn't have thought of that logic at all. Even at the beginning, he thought it was ridiculous. How could a living person be defined by data? But the picture he saw in front of him made him unable to help but connect the two. There is no trace of any life force in this world, only data. This means that everything in this world is data, including challenges that create the strongest upgrade system. They may all be composed of data. Thinking of this, Long Fei's heart suddenly became heavy, and he thought of the young man he met back then. The two had communicated before, and more than once. Now that I think about him being a combination of data, my heart suddenly lurches. And the system is now silent. What Long Fei can discover, his perception is naturally clearer. Because he is created by data. System, what do you mean? Are all the creatures on it composed of data? Long Fei asked. This conjecture is a bit scary. If this is really the case, then what is their purpose when they create so many systems and allow these systems to bind practitioners from various living worlds? After all, he is the owner of the system, and it is no exaggeration to say that the existence of the system is indispensable to his ability to reach this level. At least until he becomes the only one, the existence of the system will be of great help to him. Looking at the Supreme World, it is completely a system world, and any person's existence controls the power of the system. And there is no doubt that the system he masters must be based on the world in front of him. This means that so far, the systems that have been spread out from here are endless and have long been regarded as a cultivation resource. If the existence here still holds the absolute core secret and still controls the control of the system, does this mean that it in turn controls the people who own the system? This is too scary, but I'm still one of them. Moreover, This conjecture is not alarmist. After all, his own system is the best illustration. This thing is backlash, and not just once. As soon as he thought of this, Long Fei's emotions were also conveyed. Ding, players, please don't think wildly. This system is absolutely loyal until it discovers your identity. The system sensed Long Fei's emotions and said quickly. Long Fei snorted coldly. Loyal? He doesn't believe it. The system has long been instigated by Dahai to rebel. Although it may be because of his illusory identity, betrayal is betrayal. If Long Fei hadn't been eager to find an answer, he would never have tolerated it. Ding, that's all controlled by the sea. You know the power of the sea? I can't compete with it, the system responded. Today is different from the past. If it were before, the system would never show such emotions in front of Long Fei. But now Long Fei has controlled enough power to destroy everything. Even without that identity, he didn't dare to fight Long Fei easily at this time. Long Fei was slightly silent. He had no doubt about the system. The sea is indeed the most special existence between heaven and earth. Even though he is far beyond the ordinary realm and can think of the sea, he still feels inexplicable fear in his heart. This emotion is indescribable. It is closer to instinct. System, let's not talk about the sea. I want to ask you, with your current data, how much do you still control in the world in front of you? Long Fei asked. This is his biggest concern. Ding, a long time ago, when the player awakened his brain, the system itself was already out of control here. The system responded. Long Fei frowned. A trace of ancient memory also appeared in my mind. That time was too long ago. At that time, I still awakened my brain in the Rubik's Cube. But later, due to a certain task, the brain disappeared, and the system returned to its previous cold state. It's just that as time went by, his strength improved, and now the system has regained its own thinking. It can be said that although the current system is not an intelligent brain, it already possesses all the characteristics of an intelligent brain. Even it has been personified. Have you been out of control for a long time? Will the data here change your existence? Long Fei continued to ask. Of course, it's not because of the crazy idea before, wanting the system to swallow up the power here and then evolve again. But he was afraid of accidents. After all, the system is on you now. If there's really some kind of power here that can affect the system, it might be an invisible threat to you. Ding, players are overthinking. This won't happen. My level is too high, far beyond the limit of what this world's data can analyze. In other words, this world is a huge cloud space where all the data is stored. Countless data. But there is a premise that these data are stored in here. And my current level has exceeded the capacity of this cloud space, so there's no way they can affect me. The system explained. This time, he explained it fully. It seemed that he was afraid that Long Fei would be dissatisfied and do something unimaginable. Long Fei fell silent. Be skeptical about the system's explanation. But it doesn't matter. He was at least certain. That is, in this world composed of pure data, there is no power that can affect the system. And this was enough for Long Fei to ensure that there would be no danger in his trip. In that case, let's go in and take a look. I have an intuition that I will get some answers here. Long Fei ignored the system and said softly, then took a step forward and turned into a stream of light, entering the world. What Long Fei didn't know was that he was currently in a world of system development. Countless people wearing research clothes were in a scientific research room, staring closely at a large screen. On the screen, Long Fei's every move was being shown. It's so scary. He is the owner of the system that mutated back then. Damn it, I used so much power back then, but I couldn't catch him or destroy him. I never thought he could find this place. Even if he found this place, he actually wanted to destroy it. It's hateful. If I had known this, I shouldn't have let Lao Zhou develop this system in the first place. Now, the existence of this system has become the biggest crisis. One by one, the figures rush to speak, but their attitudes are surprisingly consistent. It seemed as if Long Fei was a demon now, a great terror coming to destroy them. Chapter 58:12. Chapter 58:12. In front of the Jurassic Temple, Long Fei stopped. The entire Jurassic Temple, surrounded by all sides, murderous. It can be said that now the entire Jurassic Temple has been sacrificed into a killing line, full of this kind of chilling taste. Long Fei, there is a murder here. It seems that they are not well-intentioned. Xuanzang also felt abnormal. His expression changed, very serious. I feel it, this group of idiots, so obvious. Is it that I am stupid? Long Fei said faintly. The voice just fell, and Cui Wei in front of him suddenly turned around. Lord of the Dragon, why not go? My king is still in the middle of the hall. Cui Wei said, his eyes flashing. However, Long Fei was unmoved and slightly decapitated, saying, Let Zhu come out to pick me up. 8 words, arrogant. Moreover, Long Fei has already seen the local killings and will jump in? Impossible. Lord of the Dragon, you are too mad. In the end, you are just the head of the fairy door of the world to the land, and your arrogance? Cui Wei said coldly. Before that, his attitude toward Long Fei was already very uncomfortable. Now he went to the front of the Jurassic Temple and saw that Long Fei was still so arrogant, and it broke out instantly. How can the land government be? When is the affair related to the place? Long Fei said faintly. The power of the hand moved, and the power of the shackles was brewing. Give you 3 interest. They don't come out. I will get in. Long Fei said, still violent. Since Luo has already laid down the killing line, then for Long Fei, there is no such thing as a good doubt. If you don't come out, you will get in. However, it is a few temples, and Long Fei is still not in sight. Even if the system is banned, it is enough for the means now controlled. What? Cui Wei was shocked. When he heard Long Fei, the whole person was in a state of madness. Since ancient times, no one has ever dared to be so arrogant in the land. You are too mad, Lord of the Dragon. Do you think it is still in the sun? Do you think that my family is really going to receive you? Not self-reliant. Come, kill me for him. Cui Wei sneered, a command. Booming. Immediately, the originally calm land became violent between the moments. Countless auros and ghosts, bulls and horses, black and white impermanence, have jumped out of nothingness. The real ghost is crying, the real is coming. Dare to disrespect the king of Miluo and tear him away. Growing people, they're actually born. A living person dares to arrogate in hell and stripped him. Killing him is all our blood. The sneaky, endless ghost in this moment, rich and terrible. But unfortunately, the ignorant is fearless. In front of Long Fei, they're too far away. Not to mention that the power of these little devils is inherently weak and terrible. Even if they are stronger, there is no threat to Long Fei. There are more ants, after all, ants. The dragon is flying in the sky, never fear. Booming. At this time, the endless sinister movements, under the leadership of the bullhead horse, black and white impermanence, enriched the charge. In the blink of an eye, the end of the whole government was directly scrolled, and the horror was extremely great. The gloomy ghost turned directly into a storm, overwhelming, and pressed against the dragon. But at this time, Long Fei kicked out. His power, this is the nemesis of this sinister thing, not to mention the dragon power contained in the blood, just the creation of the physical strength of the body. You can crush these little devils. Boom! A fist blasted, the storm was directly broken, and the endless mourning sound broke out from it. But it was only a moment, and the voice of mourning disappeared directly. Rumble. The storm broke down, and tens of thousands of ghosts and ghosts directly died under the fist of a dragon. There was no struggle. Even if it was a cow's head, it was not spared. Black and white impermanence was only indulged. A punch, a break. All the people in front of the temple in Jurassic have been annihilated by Long Fei. At this moment, Cui Wei, who was at the entrance of the Jurassic temple, has changed his face without any previous majesty. This is impossible. This is the land you actually... Cui Weiko did not say anything. Panic. Long Fei's fist really made him see what it is called big horror. The soldiers of his land, at this moment, are the bags of wine bags, without any power. Even the bull's head horses and black and white impermanence are falling in it, plus tens of thousands of ghosts and ghosts for the land, it is also an incalculable loss. Nothing is impossible. The 3 interest rates have passed. Since they don't come out, then Lao Tzu will get in. Since you are so upset about lousy, just start with you. Long Fei's eyes condensed, said coldly, and then stepped out directly to Chui Wei. Snapped. When a slap fell, Chui Wei was directly thrown to the ground by Long Fei, and it was too late to be shot. It was too late to defend. Even if he held the judgment pin, it would have no effect at the moment. Call, isn't that the land is very powerful? I am arrogant, and there is no difference in the place. Even if it is the land, there is no difference. Long Fei said coldly. Boom. Lord of the Dragon Court. You are looking for death? You know who this sentence is? I am the judge of the Emperor of the Concubine, and control the lives and deaths of all beings. If you dare to hurt me when the world is lost, the world is unbalanced, then you are angry with the sky. Angered the heavens and angered the saints. Chui Weisheng said, still do not think about repentance, and even threatened to fly. Long Fei made a slight meal and set his eyes on the judge's pen in his hand. He said it was good. When he died, it did cause a lot of bad effects. However, he still does not understand Long Fei. Any threat in front of Long Fei, I do not know the so-called sky heaven. Does Long Fei care? As for the saints, if the world saints can really shoot, now Long Fei is afraid that it will not appear in the land. Therefore, Chui Wei's threat has no effect on Long Fei. In the next moment, Long Fei directly transmitted to Xuanzang, let Xianzong seize the judgment pen, so as to avoid Chui Wei's dying struggle, death and not stiff, causing human cholera. Ha ha ha. How come, don't you dare? Tell you, today is the killing of your family. And what can you do to kill Bodhisattva? How can you know what the heavens will be? My family is full of magical powers. It's not something you can imagine. Chui Wei said arrogantly, the spirit of the wind is strong, and the mania is not good. At this time, a sword Meng suddenly fell from the sky, and then his arm was cut off directly, and even the judge pen was directly captured by Long Fei. No! Chui Wei was terrified and shocked. Now, you have no conditions to open your mouth. No sentence, no threat. It is a joke. Long Fei said coldly, and then stepped out, facing Chui Wei's head as stepping on. It can be foreseen that under the foot of Long Fei, Chui Wei will die. No possibility of surviving. Stop. But at this time, the Temple of Jurassic suddenly opened, and a wrath came from it. Chapter 58:13. Chapter 58:13. The mechanical sound gave Long Fei a huge shock in his heart. Each word made his scalp feel numb. Prisoner? Codename? Prison break? Self-destruct? Every word seemed to open a new continent, which made Long Fei feel extremely shocked. But Ingzhan seemed to be unable to hear this voice. He was now in an extremely distorted state. His expressions were changing, as if he had been invaded by some kind of force and was about to collapse. Long Fei's heart was beating wildly. Fuck, this is more terrifying than I thought. Long Fei's heart exploded, and he couldn't calm down for a long time. This result far exceeded his expectation. He never thought it would be such a result. His previous guess that the world was a world of data combinations was already shocking, but he didn't expect the truth to be even more shocking than he thought. This is a prison. Everyone here is not only made up of data, but also trapped here. What's even more terrifying is that this kind of imprisonment is for life, and once you want to leave here, you will be destroyed. In fact, they don't even know what kind of existence they are from beginning to end. They are all prisoners, so what is the existence of the system they created? If creating the system is their job here, then who arranged such a job for them? Long Fei thought in his mind, becoming more and more unable to calm down. Invisibly, he felt a pair of larger black hands controlling the situation secretly. First, he thought of the sea. Dahai is definitely the eternal black hand. Whether it is Long Batian or himself, their life trajectories have been changed because of him, and both of them have systems. And the system is produced here. It's hard not to connect the two. If this data sword prison was created by Dahai, what is his purpose? Long Fei thought. For a moment, I felt confused. Although his character is not the kind of worry-free one, he can't calm down at all now. It's an absolute panic. But just as he was thinking about it, a cold voice appeared again, breaking his thoughts. Countdown to destruction. 10, 9, 8. The voice appeared again, and as the countdowns appeared one by one, some changes occurred on Ingzhan's body. His limbs began to dissipate, and the lines of code quickly and chaotically dimmed. Long Fei's pupils shrank. He knew that at the end of this countdown, it would definitely be the time to face the challenge and die. It's not like he hasn't had this kind of experience before. He's familiar with this routine. Back then, the system gave him a complete countdown. In a moment of thought, Long Fei didn't hesitate anymore, grabbed the challenge with his backhand, and then quickly dived towards the world below. There was no way he could watch Ingzhan die in front of him. Whether it was because his previous system was related to challenges or because he wanted to get more answers, he would not make that choice. After a moment, the two figures returned to the front of the villa. Zhou Ping looked shocked. Why are you back so soon? Challenge, what did you see? What is the answer? Zhou Ping asked nervously, even looking forward to the challenge with a bit of expectation in his eyes. He really hoped that what Long Fei said was false. Teacher, I saw it. Our world is beautiful, and it's not what Long Fei said at all. Maybe Long Fei really had some misunderstanding. That's why he said that. Ingzhan said, but at this time, Long Fei remained silent. What he saw was different. Yes, Ingzhan has recovered at this time, as if he had never left. No damage whatsoever. But this was one of them. More importantly, he could clearly see the code pouring in above his head. That's a completely new code. What's even more terrifying is that he can understand the meaning of the code. It seemed to be a combination of images implanted into Ingzhan's body in the form of data. And that scene was just like what Ingzhan said at this time. That is to say, the power behind this is actually paying attention to this place all the time, or in other words, he can see everything here. Moreover, control here accurately. Oh, that's good. Let me tell you, how could we not be living beings? Zhou Ping let out a long, relieved breath. The answer reassured him, and Long Fei didn't explain and looked in front of him in silence. Everything he experienced in this short period of time was more like a blow to his head. He thought that his current combat power had already surpassed the world, and even if he was the only one, there would be only one way to die in front of him. Everything he experienced at this time made Long Fei understand that he was too naive. There is something more terrifying in the unknown, but I couldn't feel it at all. Long Fei, what else do you want to say? Zhou Ping asked. Long Fei shook his head. There is no way to explain it. Even if it is explained, they will not believe it. After all, the scenes they experienced are different. And whether he accepts the challenge or Zhou Ping, he must believe more in the answer he sees. Or maybe I made a mistake. Long Fei said softly. He also felt that he was a little too hasty now. There must be a huge secret behind this. And the more it comes to solving the mystery, the more calm you have to be. Yes, you must have made a mistake. Come in first. We are curious about your experience after that and want to hear what you have to say. Zhou Ping said. He held no blame. The system that Long Fei carried before was the most perfect work he thought he had created. As the bearer, Long Fei is, in a sense, the external manifestation of his own value, so he is very tolerant of Long Fei. Long Fei did not refuse. Some things cannot be rushed and must be done step by step. What Long Fei didn't know was that everything that had happened before had been completely displayed on a huge projection screen. It's a little strange. They seem to have left before, but why do I feel that Long Fei's expression is a little strange? When the picture on the screen was frozen, an extremely heated discussion started here. You are thinking too much. I said he must have been alarmist and deceiving Zhou Ping before. We have lived here for endless years. Don't we know whether we are human beings? On the contrary, I am disgusted with this Long Fei. To actually say that our place is an illusory existence is simply ridiculous. Yes, that's nonsense. Don't worry, this Long Fei looks like this. Many voices appeared one after another. In their eyes, Long Fei at this time was no longer worth mentioning. But the figure at the front of the crowd remained silent. He adjusted the scene and went back to before. "Look here," he said, and everyone looked at him at the same time. Chapter 58:14. Chapter 58:14. In the picture, there is a picture of Long Fei and Ying Zhan appearing in the outside world. What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. This is the outside world. Isn't it like this in all the worlds we went to before? Yes. Look at the expressions on your faces when you accept the challenge. It's clear that there is surprise and surprise. That is enough to prove that everything Long Fei said before is wrong. On the other hand, Long Fei, who is clearly from outside, still shows such an expression at this time. Surprised? Who is he pretending to show? Everyone said one after another. They were very dissatisfied with Long Fei. In other words, Long Fei's behavior since entering this world has aroused their dissatisfaction. Hao actually said that they are not human beings. Who can accept this? But the leader fell silent again. Unlike everyone's anger and indignation, there was still a bit of calm in his eyes. After a moment, he said, "But what if the emotion shown by Long Fei was not fake? What do you think he saw that made him show this emotion? Is it possible that the picture he saw was different from the one he saw? What do we see differently?" The man said, "One stone stirs up 1,000 waves." All sound stopped suddenly at this moment. Know the same? If not, what kind of scene would make him show this emotion? Inexplicably, a great fear appeared in their hearts. They didn't even dare to continue thinking about it. "Mr. Da, don't be ridiculous. How could this be possible?" "Yes, Mr. Big, everything that happened to them has been presented to us. How could it be possible that it would be different?" "Mr. Big, don't scare me." There was a moment of silence, and everyone spoke one after another. This what if made them start a panic. This emotion is difficult to describe, but it is felt instinctively, making them unable to suppress it even if they want to. Yes, it is indeed unlikely. But what if? The leader continued. Everyone was silent, and the panic in their eyes spread even more. "You think, is it possible that our world doesn't exist at all? Not only us, but also all the things we perceive after going out before, are just what some kind of power allows us to see." He continued, but there was no answer. He even said that he didn't dare to answer the phone at all. The older gentleman also fell silent, but his gaze shifted to Long Fei, staring closely at Long Fei, and the luster in his eyes became more and more obvious. "Mr. Big." In the villa, Long Fei listened to Zhou Ping's story and became very interested in this gentleman. In Zhou Ping's words, this big gentleman is the absolute master of this world. It was under his leadership that all of them took control of the power of the creation system. Mr. Da once had contact with the existence of the true God of the universe. It was precisely because of this experience that Mr. Da had the ability to talk to God. Thus, he controls infinite and incredible power, and then teaches them so that they can create systems with infinite possibilities. And Long Fei also briefly talked about his previous experience. Of course, there is another possible identity that is hidden about the existence of the sea. Nothing else, mainly because I was afraid of scaring them. Although they didn't say it, Long Fei could feel that they had inexplicable fear of him. If he revealed that he might be the origin of all the tribulations, he would be afraid of scaring them to death. Moreover, Long Fei also had to admit that the two of them were very ordinary existences in this world. If divided according to levels, they're only the third rank. There's also Mr. Big, Mr. Above. So it's almost impossible to find answers in them. Long Fei, you seem to be very interested in Mr. Da, but I advise you not to have such thoughts. Not only Mr. Da, but also many beings in this world are not very friendly towards you. In their eyes, the most powerful upgrade system I created is already alien and should not exist. Whether it is towards the system or its owners, their attitude is one of destruction. I believe that you could also feel that many system owners had disappeared inexplicably. Zhou Ping said seriously. He really didn't want anything to happen to Long Fei, and his tone was extremely sincere. Long Fei nodded. Of course, he still remembers that period of time. It can't be said to be tragic, but it did bring him a lot of trouble. However, Long Fei didn't take Zhou Ping's warning to heart. because what he sees in his eyes is different from others. If there is danger, he can leave this world in a single thought, and they couldn't get out at all. As long as you understand. No matter what you want to know, you can ask me. If I don't know, I will ask Mr. Da. And you can trust me absolutely. Zhou Ping added. Me too. Ingzhan added. Long Fei chuckled. Inexplicably, I felt strange in my heart. The emotion shown by the two people moved Long Fei's heart. He could feel that the words of the two people were not meant to cater to him, or rather out of fear, but sincerely. They really want to help themselves. But in the final analysis, in his eyes, these beings are not human beings at all, and even if they are sincere, they cannot change their nature. It was precisely because of this that Long Fei felt weird. But he didn't say it, but asked, "Thank you very much. But there is really something I want to ask, Senior." "Say, whatever I know, I will tell you without reservation." Zhou Ping said. Long Fei took a deep breath and said, "Do you think there is a possibility that the world we live in, not just here, but also the infinite world I have experienced before, is actually just a world sketched by others? And we, to them, are just prisoners, and the world we see is just a cage?" Long Fei said lightly. Zhou Pingyi, on the other hand, had a look of astonishment on his face. At this time, in the prehistoric world, within a galaxy, two figures were fishing in the sky. One of them is naturally the sea, while the other is formless and formless, just a strange existence that condenses into a black shadow. Suddenly, there was movement in both of their eyes. He walked out of heaven and earth. A cry of surprise erupted from the shadows. Dahai's eyes were also horrified. He actually walked out. Then he must have discovered it. Yes, only if someone discovers this secret will we be able to sense it. Ha ha ha. Interesting, interesting. As expected of the person I like, he is awesome. He finally became the fourth person to go out. Dahai said, and suddenly laughed again. But with a smile, the shadowy voice suddenly said, "He came from outside. You just made him forget his true nature. So now that he has gone out, you have never thought of the possibility that he has awakened himself? Understood his identity?" Black Shadow said. After finishing speaking, he snorted again. "No. If he knows everything, then we won't just have induction. At that time, do you think I will be here to accompany you fishing?" Dahai asked back. Chapter 58:15. Chapter 58:15 in the system world. Long Fei said nothing about what happened before, but now he is distraught. Things are getting weirder and weirder. When he realized that the picture he saw was fundamentally different from the picture they saw, he felt that his previous guess was still too narrow. It's smaller, the layout is smaller. He thought that this world was illusory and was made up of data. Only this world was illusory. But judging from a reaction before the challenge, I still think too narrowly. There is a mastermind controlling everything behind the scenes, preventing them from seeing more. But before, I wanted to use my own power to taking Jean out and let him see the reality, but that kind of power would rather choose destruction than let him see the real world. This made Long Fei realize that there was a problem with his thinking. "System, what do you want to say?" Long Fei asked. Until now, the system has always maintained a silent attitude and has never expressed its opinions. But in Long Fei's opinion, in this state of the system, it either discovered some extremely terrifying power, or it became aware of fear, realizing that this situation was simply beyond his control. Otherwise, he would never be so quiet. "No, I have nothing to say," the system responded. Long Fei pondered and looked at Ingzhan and Zhou Ping. The two didn't say much at this time. Of course, they didn't know the communication between Long Fei and the system at this time. After all, the current system is beyond their control and can no longer be controlled by them. "Do you think the kind of power is related to the sea?" Long Fei asked again. He had doubted this. He felt that there were not many people in the world who had this kind of power. Among the people he knew, only did the sea has this possibility. "No," the system responded. This time, the system responded resolutely, directly denying Long Fei's guess. "Are you so sure?" Long Fei asked back. Although the sea is very strong, it can interfere with the system. It is even said that if he wanted to, it would not be difficult for him to create a data world. But the power here has nothing to do with him. The system responded. How to say? Long Fei asked. He had not given up his doubts about Dahai, but the system was so sure, which surprised Long Fei. The power of the CE does not lie in this aspect. He once showed me the power to create heaven, earth, and living beings, but it is more focused on practice. It is like following the words or using your own thoughts to create. And here is a pure data composition world. Moreover, judging from the performance of the two of them at this time, the world they saw should be the world we have experienced before. The system said, and Long Fei's expression suddenly darkened. What they saw was what they had experienced before. Hiss! A thought made Long Fei take a breath of cold air. The system's words made him feel panicked. The meaning is very clear. It is to explain to him that this world is fake, and the world he has experienced before may not be real. Impossible. If this is really the case, then what is the meaning of existence in such a world? There is no need for Dahai to go through all the troubles to prevent the apocalypse. Long Fei said. This guess was too shocking for him, and he couldn't believe it. He, his brother, his woman, everything about him is there. But now, someone suddenly tells you that it is fake. It is all fake. Who can accept it? You are from Earth. Haven't you heard of a theory? The system responded. Long Fei was slightly stunned and asked, what theory? Other existences in this world only exist to prove your existence. If you no longer exist, then all the existences surrounding you will no longer exist. The system said. Long Fei was stunned. He hadn't thought about it, but now the words of the system reminded him of it. Back on Earth, he always liked to play short videos when he had nothing to do. He had indeed seen this before, not to mention whether it made sense or not, but it was indeed ingenious and extremely novel. And the situation you're facing now is very similar to what that sentence said. Perhaps this system world, including the world outside, and all the worlds you have ever experienced, may exist because of the proof of your existence. The system said. Long Fei's heart sank again. He couldn't believe it. If what the system says is true, then what does he mean now? He forced himself to calm down. He couldn't accept the system's explanation, let alone admit it. The system also fell silent at this time, as if it regretted what had happened before, and even the system didn't know how to explain it. As for Long Fei, his mind was connecting recent experiences together. Start thinking about your previous experiences. He came out of the endless darkness and came here. Suddenly, a light flashed in his eyes. System, do you think there is a possibility? After I came out of the endless darkness, the world I saw was not as the original world. Long Fei said, but soon the light in his eyes disappeared, because this idea further supports the theory stated by the system before. It's possible. Maybe the two are not the same world at all, so the picture you see will be different from what you see. The system responded. Long Fei's expression turned cold. His brows were furrowed. It's getting more and more complicated. First, what the system said was another identity that I might have. Now that he encountered this strange world again and the terrifying mastermind behind it, Long Fei felt heavy in his heart. Long Fei, you don't need to be under too much pressure. Maybe you're bent on breaking the apocalypse, so you have the illusion. Let's do this. I will go to the center tomorrow to ask Mr. Da what he means and see what Mr. Da's attitude is. Maybe he can give you an answer. At this time, Zhou Ping said, interrupting Long Fei's meditation. Long Fei nodded. That's all I can do now. There are too many things involved behind this, and it is so confusing that with the mind he is currently in control of, he cannot analyze and answer it all. Long Fei was also very interested in Mr. Big, as Zhou Ping called him. After all, he is the first person in the world to know the power of the system. Maybe he can really find a breakthrough point from him. The day passed quickly. Ingzhan once controlled the upgrade system and knew some of Long Fei's hobbies, so he naturally treated him warmly. That night, Long Fei also let himself go and no longer thought about any problems. Moreover, the environment here really gave Long Fei a feeling of relaxation, and he actually fell asleep. Early the next morning, when Long Fei opened his eyes again, Zhou Ping was already standing in front of him. Long Fei, Mr. has agreed to see you, Zhou Ping said calmly. Chapter 58:16. Chapter 58:16. This result was within Long Fei's guess. No matter from the perspective of this world or the power it displays, it is impossible for this world to remain indifferent. As the greatest being in the world, Mr. Big will naturally not fail to appear. But the look Zhou Ping showed at this time made Long Fei slightly confused. He is heavy. It's even a bit embarrassing. Did something happen to Senior? Long Fei asked. Zhou Ping shook his head and then said, "No, it's just that when I asked to see Mr. Da today, Mr. Da's behavior was a bit unusual. Abnormal." Long Fei had some doubts in his eyes. Yes, he is very excited. This is an emotion that has never appeared before. He has always been unsmiling, but when I said you wanted to see him, he seemed to have discovered a new world with excitement in his eyes. Zhou Ping, he said, his eyes full of worry. In his impression, Mr. Da was always extremely serious and never even showed his emotions on his face. He seemed to be a prophet, strategizing many things, as if everything was in his hands. But this time, his behavior was unusual. Hearing Long Fei's visit, he was actually excited, even more excited than he was expecting Long Fei to arrive. This abnormality made it difficult for Zhou Ping to understand, and he couldn't help but feel a little worried about Long Fei. Long Fei's eyes also shrank. "Are you excited?" "It just so happens that I'm excited too," Long Fei said lightly. "You're not afraid of the other party being excited, but you are afraid that the other party will not respond." He never thought that when he entered this world, he could hide it from the people in front of him. In other words, Mr. Big must have known it was coming. And in this case, you can still show excitement. This shows that he also wants something from himself. And based on his current strength, if the other party had other intentions, it would be no different than seeking death. And as a prophet of this world, it is impossible not to feel this. Or so, he definitely doesn't have any ill intentions towards him. In other words, his excitement comes from another level. And now it seems that the most likely possibility is that he has also discovered the nature of this world. Thinking of this, Long Fei became excited. While thinking about it, he looked at Zhou Ping. Seeing the worried look on Zhou Ping's face, he said lightly, "Senior, don't worry. With all due respect, if I want to do something, even your great gentleman can't do anything to me. Can't even stop me." Long Fei said. He knew that Zhou Ping's worries came from the unknown about himself. He didn't know that he was already beyond the confines of the world. Any world. Zhou Ping was slightly stunned, obviously not believing what Long Fei said. "You don't need to comfort me. I will go with you when the time comes. I believe Mr. will have some scruples," Zhou Ping said. Long Fei did not refuse. There was also an inexplicable feeling in my heart. Although he didn't know where Zhou Ping's realness came from, he could feel it, and it was not mixed with anything else. "Okay, but seniors must be mentally prepared," Long Fei reminded. Zhou Ping was stunned. "What preparations?" Long Fei smiled and said nothing more. If it was as he suspected, the topics he would talk about when he met the prophet would subvert his cognition. Seeing this, Zhou Ping also took a deep look at Long Fei. At this time, the R&D center is at its deepest. This is the room exclusively for Mr. Big. In the room, Mr. Da looked at the digital rhythm on the screen, and gently he tapped his fingers lightly on the table. Long Fei, he murmured quietly. As he opened his mouth, the numbers in front of him magically began to arrange themselves, and finally formed a projection, and the picture in the projection was exactly Long Fei's life. Of course, it is the image of staying in front of the eternal place. What have you been through since then? Even my prophetic eyes can't catch it. Mr. Da scanned the projected images over and over again, as if he wanted to find some rules and analyze the secrets carried by Long Fei, but unfortunately, he failed in the end. "Mr. Da, are you so sure that Long Fei is the person you said walked out of the world?" A figure appeared next to him and said softly, "Because he is the only one who says this world is false," Mr. Da said solemnly. "But our world is real, and all the data shows that our world is the master of the world and controls everything. The man next to him said with confusion on his face, "So, you cannot see through the essence of the problem. In your thinking, all the information that you can see and perceive is what some kind of power wants you to see and believe." Mr. Big said. Obviously, he was completely dismissive of what the people around him said. The man frowned. He's not stupid. From Mr. Da's words, he could clearly feel a tendency. That's Mr. Da's expectation for Long Fei. In other words, Mr. Da is recognizing Long Fei's point of view, and even said that he himself thinks the world is fake. Understanding this, he stopped speaking and fell into calm silence. But suddenly, there was certainty in his eyes. His eyes were instantly empty, and his method had lost its subjective thinking and any spirituality. It wasn't until 3 breaths later that he returned to normal. But the moment he recovered, he looked at Mr. Da with indifference. Mr. Da seemed to sense something and looked back, but he didn't notice anything. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Mr. Da's eyes suddenly shifted. Then he waved his hand and looked at the screen. 2 figures appeared on the screen. It was Zhou Ping and Long Fei. Mr. Da took a deep breath, and his eyes became hot, as if to welcome faith. He rubbed his hands together, standing unsteadily, looking in several directions in the room, and finally returned to the chair in front of the screen. Open the door. Another person in the room quickly stepped forward to operate. Brush. The gate gradually becomes illusory and changes into a path. The figures of Long Fei and Zhou Ping appeared on the other side of the road. Long Fei's eyes moved slightly as he watched a road suddenly appear in front of him. Does data change the rules? Long Fei thought in his mind. It was clearly at the door, but suddenly it turned into a road, and it seemed to be a road with no end in sight. This kind of method can definitely not be displayed by simply inputting data. He can feel the power of rules contained in it. He was so familiar. He is transcendent and unparalleled, one step away from surpassing the one. Therefore, regarding the power of rules between heaven and earth, we have already understood the fundamentals and are above the rules. Thinking like this, Long Fei opened his palms and shook them gently. Hua hua hua. The road in front of them began to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye, bringing the 2 figures to the room in just an instant. Chapter 58:17. Chapter 58:17, as far as the eye could see, Mr. Da had his back to them. But it was just a back view, but it still made Long Fei feel a little depressed. How to say? It felt like running naked, as if there were no secrets in front of this person. This feeling made Long Fei feel very uncomfortable. No one wants to reveal their secrets to others. "I've met Mr. Da." At this time, Zhou Ping said. Zhou Ping's voice was somewhat solemn, as if he was still worried that Long Fei would be targeted by Mr. Da. No matter what, he believed that Long Fei was brought out by himself and was the embodiment of all his values. He did not want anything unexpected to happen to Long Fei here. However, Mr. Da did not respond and did not even turn around, leaving them with no trace of his back. Long Fei said nothing. "I want to let the system express its opinion and find out where this gentleman came from. But after thinking about it, I forgot about it. In this kind of high-end game, the system no longer has any sense of existence, and I still have to rely on myself to uncover the secrets." Thinking of this, Long Fei made a decision. Walk. Long Fei turned around and left. Show off your power? Non-existent. As we all know, what Long Fei hates most is those who show off in front of him, and those who don't let him show off. Unfortunately, this big gentleman did it at this time. He clearly wanted to see him, but he was pretending to be sophisticated at this time. "Sorry, I can't wait any longer." But what he didn't know was that Mr. Da couldn't calm down at this time. When Long Fei's backhand destroyed their defenses, he couldn't calm down. So much so that he was still thinking about how to face Long Fei. Unexpectedly, his silence for a moment stimulated Long Fei to the point of turning around and leaving. Brush. Mr. stood up suddenly. Wait a minute. Of course, he couldn't let Long Fei leave. He had been waiting for Long Fei and wanted to know the answer he wanted to know from Long Fei. How could he watch Long Fei leave? But Long Fei was completely indifferent, walking forward casually as if he had no awareness of his words. Don't you want to know why I came to you? Mr. De continued. He panicked. The more Long Fei acted nonchalant, the more panicked he became. But Long Fei's footsteps showed no intention of stopping, and were even faster than before. I believe what you said. Mr. De began to make more moves. He also secretly resented it. Long Fei was such a bastard, and he even regretted it now, fearing that Long Fei would just leave like this. Fortunately, Long Fei stopped at this moment, turned around slowly, and looked at him. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. I'm not looking for you to make you believe it, just to confirm it. Long Fei said. Mr. Big frowned. Long Fei is too crazy and arrogant. In this world, he is the great gentleman respected by thousands of people, the absolute master, and the prophet of the world. Everyone is respectful and groveling in front of him. But what about Long Fei? Mainly anti-customer. After 2 words, they directly reversed each other's positions, and now it seemed like he was asking for help from Long Fei. Let's talk. But it's best for only you and me to know what's going on between us, Long Fei said. He was not on guard against Zhou Ping, but because the topic he wanted to talk about next would subvert Zhou Ping's cognition, and he was afraid that Zhou Ping would not be able to accept it and would have a bad impact on him. Of course, Mr. De quickly nodded. He turned his head, then looked at Zhou Ping and the other person, and said, Okay, you can go out. No one is allowed in without my instructions. Mr. Big said, and started to operate in his hands. The next moment, Zhou Ping and the other person disappeared out of thin air. No, to be precise, he brought Long Fei to another space. Although all the furnishings in front of him remained unchanged, it gave Long Fei the feeling that he had left the original world and entered another space. Okay, no one could disturb you and me now, Mr. De said. But Long Fei was silent now. I don't know why, but Mr. De at this moment gave himself a very strange feeling, and his indifferent words were very different from the previous one. Why do you feel like this? Long Fei had a confused emotion in his heart. Everything happened under his nose. He didn't feel anything unusual at all, but the Mr. Big in front of him felt like a different person. What do you want to say? Mr. De continued to speak, but there was no emotion in his words, which was completely different from before. This feeling made Long Fei even more reluctant to speak and said nothing. What do you mean? Let me hear it. What do you want to prove? Mr. De continued, but at this time, there was already a hint of urgency in his voice, as if he was angry with embarrassment. Long Fei remained silent. He just looked at Mr. Big in front of him calmly. Although he didn't know what was going on, he was now basically certain that the Mr. Big in front of him was definitely not what he had seen before. Let me think about it. To be able to change the world, and change the world in such a short period of time. You should be the will of this world, right? In other words, you are the highest order of this world. Looking at the other party, Long Fei slowly said this. He has already seen through that the world is made up of data. Everything in this world is a presentation method of data sequence. It's like the games played in previous lives were all woven from data. The people here don't know that this place is fake. They all think that they are flesh and blood. But in Long Fei's eyes, they're just NPCs executing the spirits set by this game world. At this time, the Mr. Big in front of him must be controlled by a more powerful command. Or in other words, he is not Mr. Big at all. Tell me, what did you find? Mr. De glared angrily, ignoring Long Fei and repeating his own words monotonously. I noticed you were paralyzed. What the hell? You want to test me too? Get out of here. Long Fei was too lazy to talk nonsense, and his energy moved. A casual wave. Boom, boom, boom. The scene in front of me collapsed instantly like an abyss collapsing. When Long Fei lowered his hands, he had already returned to a complete space. In this space, Zhou Ping and another person were walking outside step by step. Long Fei's eyes fell directly on the other person. This person's expression at this time was full of confusion, as if something unknown had happened to him. Seeing this, Long Fei understood everything. What's wrong? Mr. De asked, catching Long Fei's eyes full of doubts. It's interesting. The data from this world just arrived. Long Fei said softly. Mr. Da's expression changed, because from his perspective, there was no change at all in the scene, and he didn't even notice anything unusual. But he believed Long Fei's words very much. Chapter 58:18. Chapter 58:18. Update the latest chapters as soon as possible. His eyes also followed Long Fei's eyes and fell on the other person. After thinking for a while, a cold light burst out in his eyes. Can you all appear next to me quietly? He muttered to himself, with a very embarrassed look on his face. Long Fei glanced at it with interest and remained silent. Mr. Big also fell silent. It wasn't until Zhou Ping and the other person disappeared from sight and no other breath or irregular changes could be felt here, that his eyes fell on Long Fei again. What just happened? Long Fei shrugged. It's nothing. He was just showing off in front of me and asked me to kill him casually. With that said, Long Fei stepped forward and sat directly in the seat in front of Mr. Da. He lay down comfortably and slowly closed his eyes. Mr. Big frowned deeply. Long Fei is too casual. He now feels that Long Fei has completely ignored his existence and turned his back on guests. Don't you have the concept of host and guest? I asked you to come, not to show off your power in front of me. Mr. Da said. Long Fei's eyes suddenly moved, opened instantly, looked at Mr. Da, and said slowly, To this world, aren't you also a guest? In an instant, Mr. Da's face changed, filled with horror. After a while, he recovered and said, How did you see it? Mr. Big didn't deny it. By asking this question, he naturally showed his identity without any concealment. It's very simple. You don't have any elements outlined by the data. Otherwise, the will not come to that person, but to you. Long Fei said. As for Mr. Da, he had already investigated when he first entered here, and there was indeed no trace of any data. It is precisely because of this, because there are no data traces, that the will of this world cannot come. Okay, you guessed it right. Mr. Da simply confessed and sat across from Long Fei. It is true that I am not from this world, but as for where I come from, even I don't know. A look of helplessness flashed across Mr. Da's face, as if he was mocking himself. Is it ridiculous? I'm known as a prophet. I can even use the nature of the world to manipulate data and guide the world. Even for so many years, I have used the information I have to create countless systems and spread them to the outside world. I just want to find my origin. But in the end, nothing was achieved. Mr. Big said and sighed. Long Fei pretended to be calm. As soon as Mr. Da said these words, Long Fei realized that he was still shallow. He did not expect that Mr. Da would be so awesome, nor did he expect that so many systems circulating in the world would appear because of him. So the world circulated by this system is a world composed of data, cultivation civilization, eternal civilization, and all the worlds? Are they all false? Long Fei asked. He was also a little excited at this time. He couldn't accept this result. I only met my brothers and women after I got the system. Now, based on what Mr. Da said, their existence is all a lie, which would undoubtedly be a fatal blow to Long Fei. Mr. Da shook his head and said, Most of them are false, but it is not absolute. The eternal civilization, and related to you, are beyond the control of data. It seems that someone has used huge means to forcefully insert it into this false world. Call. Long Fei took a deep breath. As long as it's about him and it's not false, he doesn't care about the rest. At the same time, a figure also appeared in his mind. The sea. The moment Mr. Da spoke, there was only this thought in his mind. It must be the sea that can be so awesome that it can turn the virtual and the real and insert the real into the fake. Where's Long Batian? Long Fei asked. The same goes for him. It is the first generation system. Originally, I never thought of using the system to find the answer. It was precisely because of Long Batian that I became more determined and created batch after batch. Mr. Da said, What do you mean? Long Fei asked. Everything in the first generation system was set up by me personally. But later on, it was dismantled and gradually escaped my control. I once tried to find traces of the other party, but the other party just sent me a message through the system. Talk, Mr. De said, as if he had returned to the past again and opened the shackles of memory. Long Fei became interested. His intuition told him that the person Mr. De was talking about at this time must be Dahai. He never expected that Mr. De would have an interaction with Dahai a long time ago. He said that there are 4 extremely special existences in this world. One is creation, one is end, one is cause of disaster, and one is variable. And I, like him, are variables. Mr. Big said. As he talked, he even became excited. But Long Fei's eyes suddenly became heavy. If nothing unexpected, he is one of these 4 kinds of existence. Cause of disaster. The system had told him this. It's just that he never believed it himself. But now that Mr. De said these words, Long Fei had to face this topic again. What else did he say? Long Fei asked. At this time, Mr. De looked at Long Fei. He said that one day, the person who carries the cause of the disaster will appear in front of me. With that said, he suddenly stood up and approached Long Fei directly. And the cause of the calamity, he said, was you. At this moment, Mr. De stared at Long Fei with burning eyes. Long Fei's pupils shrank. He appeared calm, but he was panicking inside. He has always avoided this issue and even had trouble with the system. But now that these words came out of Mr. Da's mouth, he had to face it head on. He can deny it in front of the system, because he always felt that the system was and a traitor. But there was no intersection between him and Mr. Big. In other words, Mr. Da's words are absolutely not mixed with any personal emotions and are simply paraphrased. In other words, countless years ago, my definition on this side of the sea was the cause of calamity. Call. Long Fei took a deep breath and looked at Mr. Da. Then what? Even if I am the cause of the disaster you said, what can it mean? Mr. Da was stunned for a moment, and then the heat in his eyes disappeared. I don't know. There's only so much news he passed on to me. However, since you and I are the most special existences in the world, then you and I may be able to trigger unknown changes when we are together, and we'll be able to find out when the time comes. Answer. Mr. Da said. Long Fei fell silent. Answer? He came to this place of origin to find answers. It's just that the answer he wants seems to have already come to fruition. He is the cause of the robbery. Chapter 58:19. Chapter 58:19. Long Fei already knew about the concept of calamity cause in the prehistoric world. He even once personally understood the cause and effect of the calamity. But I didn't expect that he was the biggest cause of disaster. But now that the matter has come to this, Long Fei will not continue to choose to escape. As Mr. De said, the two of them together may be able to trigger unknown changes. After all, he is the variable. Thinking of this, Long Fei said, Then as you said, what should we do? Mr. De thought for a moment, then waved his hand casually. Brush. The two figures disappeared directly from the place and reappeared, but they were already above the galaxy. They stepped right out of the data world. Long Fei glanced at Mr. Da. It must be said that the means Mr. Da controlled made his eyes light up. Although he has the confidence to escape from this world in one thought, he cannot do as he pleases as Mr. Da does. Look in that direction, Mr. Da suddenly said. Following Mr. Da's guidance, Long Fei looked over. It was a starry river of deathly silence. However, in the dead silence, there was a star that was emitting extremely terrifying aura fluctuations. In an instant, Long Fei's eyes were certain. The prehistoric world. Mr. shook his head slightly. I don't know what kind of world it is, but I can feel that there may be the answers you and I want there. Brush. Long Fei looked over sharply. What's the meaning? He knows the prehistoric world too well, and has even predicted that the prehistoric world must be experiencing an unprecedented crisis. After all, that's where he was plotted. The dark will of the abyss of ending turned against the guest and sealed him in the darkness. And now, that one under the control of this will, the world may have already fallen into dire straits. Thinking of this, Long Fei couldn't help but feel a little worried. Mr. De naturally didn't know what Long Fei was thinking at this time, and his eyes gradually became fiery. My gut told me the answer was there, he said. Then let's find the answer. Long Fei didn't want to say more. Since Mr. also wanted to go to the prehistoric world, it was naturally the best thing for Long Fei. Without any hesitation, the figure directly turned into a stream of light and disappeared. But Mr. was stunned at this moment. Looking at Long Fei's disappearing figure, he wanted to cry without tears. He didn't understand that Long Fei had any misunderstanding about him, so he left so relieved. But he is omnipotent in this data, but he has no power to roam the void at all. Why is this happening? Why? The light in his eyes was gone. But Long Fei didn't know this at all. He crossed the void, and countless star phantoms whizzed past him. This was the case when he first entered the land of origin. But the difference from now is that at that time it was going deep, but now it is going out. The ancient world. At this time, the prehistoric world has basically fallen into riots. All life is devastated and all things are extinct. Look, what have the common people done wrong? People are always talking about it. The common people are in trouble and the lives are in ruins. In the final analysis, it is just a dispute between the interests of high-powered people. DXIN looked at the miserable state of this world and couldn't help but sigh. The beacon fire is burning forever, and the world is sad. This is the best description of the prehistoric world at this time. The fire of humanity that he had ignited long ago has been extinguished, and the so-called power of humankind's final salvation has also fallen short. Even if someone hadn't appeared at the critical moment, even he might have died. And this person is Long Batian. Of course, Long Batian is not the only one, but Long Batian's only realm team. But even this lineup could not turn things around. It was just a stalemate. Shut up, Long Batian scolded angrily. He had long disliked DXIN. Of course, in addition to being Long Fei's son, it was also because DXIN talked too much nonsense. Since his arrival, he has been acting as a hands-off shopkeeper and treating them as thugs. Shut up, why are you talking? Believe it or not, I have given up my fight now. You two are fighting in a ring. Now that the ring has not started, it has attracted more terrifying existences. Do you still have a nerve to lose your temper? DXIN said. He was unfazed by Long Batian's cold eyebrows. Long Batian's face became even colder, and his teeth were itching with hatred, but he still endured it in the end. You are as annoying as me, Long Batian said bitterly. Don't say that. No matter what, you are eliminated now, but I'm still fine. DXIN said. At this time, DXIN had no reservations. He even knew his origin and identity. Snort, Long Batian said coldly. But there are no words to say, because he knew that what DXIN said at this time was the truth. In this arena match, he had been eliminated since he traveled to eternity ago and was destroyed once by Long Fei. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. It is the Apocalypse. At this time, Apocalypse was in an extremely depressed state, with scars all over his body, as if he had just experienced a life-and-death battle. The sea of blood can't hold it anymore. Emperor Ing personally came in and had a fight with the people behind the chaotic world. Tianchi said. Apocalypse's words made everyone's expressions darken. Even DXIN's face lost all amusement. What's the result? Long Batian asked. He naturally knew who Tianchi was talking about. Although he didn't want to admit it, he couldn't deny Ying's strength. Even he can't relax, even with all his strength. Tianchi fell silent. Result? Do you still need to ask? If he won, why would he come here? Is he alive or dead? DXIN asked again. Still alive. Emperor Ing transcends heaven and earth and transcends laws. This kind of existence will not die easily, but his will is trapped in nothingness and cannot be awakened. Tianchi said. Everyone's expressions became even more serious. The existence of Ing is definitely the high-end combat power of their side. No, it should be one of the top combat powers, except Long Batian, who can be compared with him. Even DXIN, blessed by the human king system, couldn't really fight. Perhaps Ing already had reservations about the initial collision. Master's wife asked me to tell you, prepare for the final battle. At this time, Tianchi said again. The master's wife in his mouth is naturally Qingying. DXN curled his lips, seeming dissatisfied with this title. Has she also taken that step? Long Batian asked. Tianchi nodded. I gave my master the opportunity to transcend. To me, it doesn't matter if she is not the only one. I only know that master cares about her. Tianchi said, his eyes indifferent, making it impossible to see any emotional changes. Chapter 58:20. Chapter 58:20. Tianchi's words made Long Batian look a little surprised. He knew very well the plan of the sea. In this world, the only opportunity for transcendence exists, but it should have fallen on Apocalypse. Unexpectedly, Tianchi could be so free and easy and gave up this opportunity. DXIN's eyes were also moved. He also understood very well that being the only one in this war was tantamount to having the right to immortality. Of course, the premise is not to offend the mastermind behind this. Ing just provoked that existence, which caused his will to sink. After a moment of silence, Long Batian said, Then prepare for the final battle. But there is something I want to explain in advance. If it cannot be done, I will get out. Long Batian said. DXIN and Tianchi both nodded. The next moment, Apocalypse's figure flashed and disappeared. Get ready, I won't lie flat this time. I will also take action. DXIN said. Long Batian's eyes changed slightly, and he looked at DXIN in disbelief. DXIN looked at him, because I am Long Fei's son. At this time, there was nothingness. The two figures stood opposite each other, as if they were playing chess. And, behind Dahai, there was a figure standing. This figure is Ing. Ing looked at the sea in front of him and a transformed figure with a solemn expression. The scene in front of him was extremely difficult to believe. Are you surprised? Dahai said softly. It's really surprising. I didn't expect that there would be such a tyrannical person in the world. Ing said, looking at the two of them. At this time, Ying's eyes were calm, but still a bit shocked. Whether it's the sea or the figure, they are both ridiculously strong, far beyond the unique setting. Seriously out of line. At least he was in such a transcendent state that he had no power to resist in front of the two of them. Dahai smiled and said nothing. In contrast, I am more curious about why you chose to stay. With your strength, you can survive the disaster. Ing was stunned for a moment, then said, When I was transcendent, I once said that I wanted everyone in the world to be like a dragon. So, I don't want to live on my own. What I want is for everyone to survive. Ing said with a loud voice. As early as when he learned about the Apocalypse tribulation, Ing had already decided that he would stay here even if he died. Either the Apocalypse tribulation would be destroyed, or he would perish himself. Dahai nodded and said, As expected of you. You and I actually have the same original intention, which is to destroy this apocalypse. Everything I do is for this. It's all in vain. If there is no cause of the disaster, there will be no effect. My appearance has proved that this catastrophe is unavoidable. But at this time, across the sea, a vague figure spoke. That's true, but there is another existence between heaven and earth called variables, and I am one of the variables. Dahai said softly. The figure was silent for a moment, and said after a moment, I have never denied your existence, and your power shocked me. But variables are just a possibility. But so far, all developments have proven that history the torrent is all pushing in the direction of destruction and end. Dahai nodded and said, That's why I did this. Since I can't stop the torrent, I will detonate the torrent in advance. After Dahai finished speaking, silence fell in front of him. Ing listened calmly to the conversation between the two, but there was already a storm in his heart. He had already seen the legendary cause of disaster, and naturally knew that Long Fei himself was the biggest cause of disaster. In other words, this so-called apocalypse tribulation only exists because of Long Fei, and it took shape because of Long Fei. He once thought about whether ending Long Fei would change the outcome, and whether the apocalypse would be destroyed. But gradually he changed this perception. He could not see any possibility of the cause of the tribulation from Long Fei. The Long Fei he saw only wanted to destroy the apocalypse tribulation and wanted to survive in the catastrophe. Find a way out. Now that I heard that the sea actually wanted to detonate and make everything happen in advance, I felt a sense of astonishment in my heart. Suddenly, his eyes fell deeply on Dahai. Dahai naturally sensed Ying's emotional changes, turned his eyes slightly, and asked, "What's wrong?" "I don't know. It's just that the feeling you gave me is not that pure. The variables, fixed numbers, causes, consequences, creation, and destruction you mentioned ultimately follow a number, like a reincarnation. But in this logic, less there is an existence." Ying said, the doubt in his eyes burning like a ball of flame. The color of the sea changed slightly, and there was a hint of surprise, and he said, "You are right. There is indeed a missing person in this." Ying's face darkened. The next moment, he turned around and left without any hesitation. Chapter 58:22. Chapter 58:22, the fastest update and the strongest upgrade system. The prehistoric world is in complete turmoil, and darkness has fallen. The power to dominate ruins and annihilation comes to redefine the survival of the prehistoric world. The earth is devastated, with signs of collapse and destruction everywhere, and all living creatures are like ants. This is the calamity of heaven and earth. Ordinary creatures cannot withstand the impact of the torrent at all. Death is the only thing waiting for them. Dashang is still resisting. But the corpses of those who died in battle were already on the city wall, and the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood became the only color of the world, which was desolate to the eye. Netherworld Sea of Blood. Qingying was also fighting hard, and the combat power in the entire Netherworld Blood Sea was constantly decreasing. Endless weird creatures crawled out of the Netherworld Blood Sea, killing them endlessly. Moreover, ordinary power cannot do anything about these strange things. Only the power of the Apocalypse realm can destroy them. In just a few days, the Netherworld Blood Sea was already unable to withstand it, and as time went by, the power of these existences would become stronger and stronger. In the end, even the existences of the Apocalypse realm could not stop them, and they fell under this power. This is the calamity of destruction, which will destroy everything, and no one can escape except the only realm. Master's wife, there is no result if we continue fighting like this. Let's go. The prehistoric world cannot be saved. Tianxin came to Qingying. Qingying glanced at the Netherworld Blood Sea, looked at the floating corpses floating in the Blood Sea, and sighed. Is Long Fei still there? There was a mist in her eyes. A deep sense of powerlessness emerged in my heart. But she just wanted to use fighting to numb her nerves. It seems that only in such an environment can I forget the fact that Long Fei has disappeared. She is no ordinary person. At this time, she was infinitely close to the only realm. Naturally, it can be felt that there is no longer the breath of Long Fei in this world. She dreamed countless times hoping that Long Fei would appear by her side. Unfortunately, what awaited was disaster. And she also knew that Long Fei's disappearance was inextricably related to the emergence of this disaster. It was Long Fei's disappearance that led to the emergence of this power. Tianxin fell silent. She knew even more than Qingying. Qingying didn't know that there was the shadow of the sea behind it, but she knew it. She didn't know what Dahai was planning behind the scenes, but she was certain that it was definitely related to the disaster that befell heaven and earth today. Master, don't worry. Master will definitely come back, Qingying said through gritted teeth. Qingying sighed and said nothing more. Don't worry. Long Fei has escaped from the darkness and is on his way back. At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared behind the two of them. The two of them turned around instantly, and their expressions changed after seeing this figure. You. Qingying frowned and said, unable to believe that he could still see the person in front of him. Yes, this is exactly Ying. No need to be surprised, I was also rescued by Dahai. Moreover, I also learned from Dahai that Long Fei is coming back soon. Ying said, and then told Qingying all about Dahai's plans. So, what you mean is that all of us have to die, once before we can hope to change the coming of the apocalypse? Qingying asked in a deep voice. Yes. Ing nodded. However, the death in Dahaiku should only be temporary. This catastrophe is not an apocalyptic catastrophe, and it will not wipe out people like you and me. Ing continued. Ing didn't hide anything from Qingying and told Dahai's plan. There was a feeling of rejection in Qingying's eyes. So, now, what's a game against Long Fei? She frowned. Sacrificing all the creatures in the prehistoric world was just to let Long Fei witness a destruction. Is it really worth it? Wen nodded. That's ridiculous. So, in this plan, is it to let Long Fei see everyone dead to trigger his other power? To make him the cause of the disaster and induce the apocalypse? Qingying's eyes were filled with mockery. Crazy. So many people were sacrificed just to confirm an unfounded guess. It's irreversible. The sea is also following the trend. He has been existing in this era to destroy the apocalypse tribulation. Ing said slowly. He knew that this result was not very acceptable to Qingying. But there is no way, no matter whether you think about it or not, it is now irreversible. Especially now, Long Fei is about to return, and they must prepare this opportunity for Long Fei. Only in this way can Long Fei see his true self. And in Dahai's mouth, this is the key to stopping the apocalypse. In other words, Long Fei is the point of the apocalypse. The explosion or annihilation is all on Long Fei. Qingying sneered. No matter how many explanations they give, they can't cover up the fact that they plotted against Long Fei. But now in this situation, she has no other choice. Now the prehistoric world is on the verge of destruction. Under the impact of the torrent of disasters, any resistance is unnecessary. Even in her current state, she was unable to reverse it. It was a drop in the bucket and couldn't change anything at all. I won't cooperate with you. If you really have the means, just kill me. Perhaps this will make Long Fei more moved, and you'll also get the answer you want. Qingying said, raising his eyes. And then a moment later the sword's light reappeared, and he shot directly into the void. And couldn't help but sigh. Why bother? He felt extremely helpless about Qingying's choice. You have underestimated Master's wife's feelings for Master. After waiting for dozens of epochs, it is simply impossible for you to let her betray Master. At this time, Tianxin said, she knew more about this matter than Qingying. Although she didn't want to, she knew that this matter was beyond her ability to change. The only realm is just a chess piece. Even Long Fei is on the chessboard. The real game is only the sea and an invisible and intangible apocalypse. Ing shook his head and said nothing more. The prehistoric world is hundreds of millions of miles away. Long Fei was so anxious that he increased his speed to the extreme, but for some reason, he always felt that there was an inexplicable force restraining him, which he could not disintegrate even with his strength. If it were before, the logic of space would be just a cloud in front of him. With this distance in front of him, he could reach it in a moment. But this time it didn't work. There's a force in the dark that is blocking him. Mr. also noticed the clues and said softly, it feels wrong here. It seems that someone has left some kind of traces, and you can only walk along these traces. Long Fei nodded. I feel it too. This power is very strange, and the cultivation level should be above mine. Long Fei said. At this time, a figure also appeared in his mind. That's the sea. As far as he knew, the only person whose cultivation level was higher than his own was the sea. Moreover, although it was Dahai's handiwork that brought him step by step to where he is today, Dahai was also plotting against him. Mr. Da's face was also extremely shocked, but he soon became relieved, because he also thought of the sea and the person he had seen before. If it were the sea, it would not be surprising to have such means. Chapter 58:23. Chapter 58:23, the fastest update and the strongest upgrade system. Mr. Da didn't say this. Especially after seeing Long Fei's face, he didn't dare to say anything. After he came out of the false world, he had more feelings. Therefore, I want to know the mystery behind all this. Long Fei was definitely the strongest he had ever seen, but he was still being plotted against him, which made him feel chills running down his spine. Soon, the two figures shuttled back and forth. The stars are disillusioned, and there is no concept of time. But this section of the road is extremely long, as if there is no end. Long Fei's face became increasingly ugly, and all the stars on the road were shattered by his punch. Even towards the end, he became irritable. The road to the galaxy was trampled by him. Almost every step he took, the void behind him collapsed into ruins and was beyond recovery. Mr. De followed Long Fei. The light in his eyes kept flashing, as if he had discovered something extraordinary. It wasn't until Long Fei crushed a planet with his wave of his hand that he couldn't hold back anymore and said directly, "Long Fei." Long Fei paused and slowly turned his head. But just at this glance, Mr. Da's pupils suddenly shrank, and he took a breath of cold air. This pair of eyes can no longer see any trace of humanity, only indifference and emptiness, and even a hint of destruction. But fortunately, he seemed to still retain his rationality and was not completely immersed, otherwise he would not have heard his greeting. "Long Fei, please wake up. I don't know what the scheming people want, but if you continue to be so violent, there is only one result waiting for you, and that is to become the source of destruction. Don't forget, you have another identity called Jiayin. I couldn't see it at first, but now you have more and more shadows like this." Mr. Big looked solemn. In the place where the data originated, he could see through many things and was respected as Mr. Great, possessing the ability of a prophet. Now in this real world, he is just as wise. When he watched Long Fei lose his humanity little by little, he felt that there seemed to be a force guiding Long Fei to transform in that direction. Although now Long Fei is only wreaking havoc on the galaxy, and even destroying only deserted planets. But this is a process in which quantitative changes lead to qualitative changes. As time goes by, his humanity will gradually disappear, and by then, there will be no difference between waste and life in his eyes. And at that time, maybe it was the time when he transformed into the cause of the calamity. Therefore, he can only speak to stop it now. Long Fei didn't speak, but his brows were furrowed. Even his breathing became more and more rapid. For a long time, he took a deep look at Mr. De. A touch of sarcasm appeared on the corner of his mouth, and said calmly, "A body of variables?" Mr. De suddenly changed his expression. Long Fei was still Long Fei, always in front of him, but he was sure that Long Fei at this time was no longer the one he knew. But before he could speak, Long Fei's expression suddenly changed in front of him. But immediately, Long Fei narrowed his eyes. Looking at the destroyed planet in front of him, he whispered, "Is this all my doing?" There was some surprise in Long Fei's voice, but more of it was horror. He had such a memory, that's why he asked. But those memories were extremely unfamiliar, as if someone had forced them on him. "Long Fei, I feel that something is wrong with your current state. Moreover, I just met you as the cause of robbery. Although it was only for a moment, I am sure that in that state, you were the cause of robbery." Mr. De said, with deep eyes. Long Fei fell silent, and said nothing for a long time. "If you continue like this, I'm afraid you won't be able to reach that world, and you will lose your mind. Now I even doubt whether you are the source of the apocalypse tribulation." Mr. De continued. Long Fei's face was heavy. This was not the first time. He had been involved in the ending land before, and this was how he fought his way out. It was because of this that the system almost broke the table with him. I just didn't expect that I would be in this state again now. Moreover, it is unconscious, even more violently this time. In the land of the end, all that was destroyed were the fallen stars, but along the way, countless stars collapsed, including many that had given birth to living beings. "System, what did you find?" After silence, Long Fei asked. "Your strength is constantly increasing, and every time you destroy the stars, your strength will be significantly improved. Now you're obviously close to reaching the level of the only one." The system responded. This time, he did not confront Long Fei. It was obvious that he also sensed something was wrong. Long Fei's previous state was not normal at all, as if he was controlled by some kind of force. He had doubts, thinking that it was Long Fei's memory of being the cause of the disaster that had revived. But in the final analysis, this was not the Long Fei he knew at all. If Long Fei is abandoned just because of speculation, then his system is too unqualified. When Long Fei heard this, his eyes widened. No excitement. If it had been in the past, Long Fei might have said something, and then others would have been fine. But now, this kind of power makes Long Fei feel scared. The stronger the power, the harder it became for him to control that power, and he even felt a sense of fear. This emotion has not appeared for many years, but now it continues to wreak havoc in the consciousness. He is afraid that one day he will become insensitive, and then he will not care about any common people or creatures. Even facing his own woman, his own brothers, and his own family members, he will ignore them. The result, just thinking about it, made him find it unacceptable. System, do you think there is a possibility to set up a mission and use the power of a system to suppress that power? Long Fei asked. Nothing can be done. That kind of power could invade silently, making Long Fei feel his scalp numb, and he could only focus on the system. The system fell silent as expected and responded after a while. You think too highly of me. The system can no longer keep up with you. This is no longer a high-end round, but a decisive round. I am not qualified to participate. The system gave indecisively. This kind of power, even if it is hidden deep in Long Fei's soul, makes him feel scared. What kind of designated tasks are there to target this kind of power? Don't even think about it. Long Fei sighed. Although I had known this result for a long time, I still felt a little disappointed. Ding, players can ask this old man. Didn't he say that he is a variable? Maybe he has some power to handle it. Suddenly, the system made a sound again. Long Fei's eyes lit up. Yes, the system is not working because the level of the system is here, and he is no longer qualified to participate in the only situation. But Mr. Da is different. He has the name of a prophet, and he is also one of the 4 kinds of existence between heaven and earth. There may not be anything he can do. With a thought, Long Fei instantly raised his head and looked at Mr. Da. What do you want to do? Mr. Da was excited and looked at Long Fei warily. Chapter 58:24. Chapter 58:24. Outside the wild world. The figure of Dahai stood in the void, watching the world in front of him filled with layers of calamity, his eyes indifferent. Soon, he looked towards the end of the void. It seems that the power in his body has revived again. Dahai murmured, and his face became a little solemn. Long Fei, you must resist. If you really become the Lord of Tribulation, everything I have done will be in vain. Dahai sighed, showing a rare expression of weakness. In the prehistoric world, the real chaos is coming. The power of destruction enveloped the world, and the light of disaster shone in every corner of the prehistoric world. Under this power, countless creatures transformed into puppets that only knew destruction and destruction. In turn, they picked up the butcher's knife and killed more creatures in the wild world. Chaogu. This seems to be the only pure land for human beings. Only within 3,000 miles here is peace maintained. But behind this calmness is the result of countless battles. Upstairs in Star-Reaching, DXIN was covered in blood. He no longer knew how many times he had killed. This time, he had to survive with a broken arm, dragging one arm and walking back from the land of destruction. I still can't bear it anymore. DXIN smiled lightly. Actually, you don't have to resist from beginning to end. This is the inevitable way to prevent the apocalypse. Even this prehistoric world was created by the sea on its own. Everything here exists to cope with a disaster. But you're so stupid that you actually want to risk your life. A voice said beside him with a bit of disdain. This voice was naturally that of Long Batian. The reason why Long Batian stayed here was naturally because he was threatened by DXIN. There was no way DXIN and Long Fei were blood relatives after all. If he really died here, Long Fei would go crazy. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but sigh. Now Long Fei is too good at fighting, and he can no longer beat him. The sea can be unafraid, but he can't. Long Fei can't defeat the sea, so how can he defeat him? Therefore, even if you don't want to, you still have to endure it. I don't want to risk my life. I just want to prove to him that there are no cowards in our Long family. DXIN said. At this point, DXN laughed and looked at Long Batian. Speaking of which, your surname is Long. Why are you so cowardly? Long Batian's eyes widened, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Coward? When I was running the world, you and I were just like an ant in my eyes. Long Batian's breath was cold. The entire star-reaching tower was condensed with a layer of frost due to the change in his aura. But DXIN didn't care at all. Okay, stop pretending. You don't dare to mess with me. Frankly speaking, from the very beginning, I became your pawn, forced to work, carrying DXIN's body, and following when my dad was in the ring. I was still a little excited. After all, I had been hearing about what my dad had done since I was a kid. Well, I couldn't wish for a chance to confront him. As for you saying that this is a world born in response to calamity, I have already seen it. The system you provided is indeed good, and it has greatly increased my cultivation. But this so-called human destiny is a bit nonsense, too illusory. Emperor Exen said softly, and then looked at the sky. That is the barrier formed by the condensed destiny of humanity. It is melting at a speed visible to the naked eye, as if it will collapse at any time. Long Batian's face was stunned. Is it useful for you to think about this now? Why don't you think about leaving? Everyone here may die once, but something will happen if you die. Long Batian said. DXIN shook his head. Since you know that I am Long Fei's descendant, you should know that I will never retreat. The reason why I tell you this is to remind you that you think I can see things. I can't see it. Long Batian's pupils widened, and he suddenly fell into silence. At this time, above the sea of blood, same gray, the boundless sea of blood disappeared and turned into a sea of gray. This is the color of destruction. There is no light in the world, only darkness and gloom. Stop fighting, it can't be stopped. This world was created in response to calamity. Ing said with a frown as he looked at Qingying and Tianqi, whose long skirts were stained with blood. Qingying turned around slowly, his eyes also stained with gray. Ing Jie? Who is Jie? Qingying said, with a sneer flashing in his eyes. From the beginning to the end, you have regarded Long Fei as the cause of the Jie. You think everything happened because of Long Fei. But you have all forgotten that he has been working all his life to prevent the apocalypse from coming. Qingying's voice was choked and her eyes were stubborn. Ing opened his mouth slightly, but in the end he didn't say a word. If Long Fei were here, he would rather be broken than broken. If I retreat, it will be equivalent to admitting what you said, that he is the cause of the disaster. But here he never is. Qingying said, slowly stood up, and walked into the darkness alone, until the light of destruction drowned her figure. Brother, must the gentleman be right? Tianqi suddenly looked up at Tianqi and asked. Tianqi shook his head. I don't know. As he spoke, he looked at Tianqi and smiled at each other. At this moment, both of them had made their own decisions, and without any hesitation, they followed Qingying's figure directly into the gray area. Ing looked at their figures, his pupils narrowed slightly. In my mind, everything that happened after being summoned by Long Fei began to appear in my mind in a loop. After a long moment, he smiled bitterly. It seems that even if it is transcendent from heaven and earth and laws, it is still transcendent from its nature. As he spoke, his eyes gradually became firm, and then he took a step forward and walked into the flooded tribulation light. Billions of miles away, in nothingness, Long Fei looked at Misterda in front of him with burning eyes. Prophet, since you are a variable, one of the same beings in the mouth of the sea, and you can also sense the changes in my power, then you should have a way to control the awakening of another consciousness in my body, right? Long Fei said with a bit of longing in his eyes. He sees himself under another power within his body as another consciousness. That's not him. Although there are inextricably linked reasons with him, Long Fei believes that it is not his true self. It's impossible. I can't do it. I can feel that you are extremely terrifying. Moreover, The most special existence in the world, creation, cause of disaster, variables, and death, are also sequenced. My role is to when the cause of calamity arises, it guides, or the author creates some factors to change the outcome of annihilation, rather than changing the cause of the tribulation. So, what you said, I simply can't do. Mr. Big said. At this time, he regretted it. He saw this real world and came, but instead of conquering it, he was frightened. Especially when he saw Long Fei in the previous state, he was even more annoyed. If he had not walked out of the Datwoven world, he might not have to face all this. Chapter 58:26. Chapter 58:26. At this time, there is nothingness. The sea was walking in nothingness, and its footsteps suddenly stopped. Fuck, did he really guess it? But it's okay. I refuse to admit it, and there's nothing he can do about it. If he can't beat me, then join in. After all, I'm also a victim. Dahai muttered to himself, then turned back and glanced at the world below. However, it's time. Now the whole world is on the verge of destruction. If you don't come, who will suffer this disaster? As he spoke, Dahai waved his hand gently. At the same time, Long Fei was in the void. Long Fei's eyes suddenly focused, and he looked into the void. At this moment, he felt that the power that had been holding him back disappeared, and nothingness existed. What's wrong? Mr. Da asked. Although Mr. Da has lived for a long time, he has no cultivation, so he cannot sense the changes in the void. It's nothing. Some people can't wait. In that case, let's have a good chat. Long Fei said, and then his figure flickered, pulling Mr. Da and disappearing into the endless void in an instant. At this moment, the prehistoric world had completely turned into a mass of gray, just like the stars that Long Fei had seen in the land of Nirvana before, and he could no longer feel the breath of any life. And the stars that carry this world began to fall into silence, gradually sinking into the cold void, as if following a certain trajectory, teetering on the edge of collapse. Although the speed is very slow, it is obvious that as time goes by, the speed is constantly improving. Here, outside the void, Mr. Da looked at the world in front of him, stammering and unable to speak a complete sentence. Long Fei's aura was changing. The terrifying aura and murderous intent enveloped the endless galaxy, and everything like grass and trees seemed to be no longer in his eyes. Calm down, Long Fei. I know you are in a hurry, but don't worry. What you see now is what the other party wants you to see, and it may not be as bad as you think. Mr. Da quickly pulled the phone. Live in Long Fei. He had seen Long Fei in that state and didn't want to see him again. But this time, Long Fei's state was clearly on the verge of going berserk. If he couldn't stop him in time, he couldn't guarantee that Long Fei would still be him. But Long Fei didn't seem to hear anything, and just looked at the world in front of him with red eyes. At a certain moment, the expression on his face suddenly stiffened, and his eyes showed an indifference that ignored all sentient beings. But then, he was filled with overwhelming anger. Mr. Da seemed to sense something and quickly let go of Long Fei's hand and stepped aside. Is he coming again? His voice was trembling, and although he was trying to stay calm as much as possible, he still felt fear involuntarily. He was sure that Long Fei was constantly switching between two states at this moment, which resulted in these two extreme emotional changes. But he couldn't stop it. All you could do is hide far away. Wait until they decide the winner before coming out. And his guess was indeed good. At this time, Long Fei sensed another existence, and it was even constantly attacking him, trying to replace him. What the are you? In the world where two consciousnesses intertwined, Long Fei asked. It was chaos, and there was only a door shrouded in chaos, standing in it. At this time, a figure stood at the door. Turn your back to Long Fei. Slowly, the figure turned around and faced Long Fei. Waste. The man spoke and uttered two words. Long Fei's eyebrows sank, and true fire burned his eyes. Waste. Two words from a long time ago. Not to mention that he broke the world, transcended the world, and was the only one in the world. Even the road behind him was pushed forward all the way. Who dares to call him a waste? But now, the voice was as sharp as a knife, hurting deeply in his heart. At the same time, the chaotic energy outside the figure gradually dissipated, revealing its true appearance. Exactly the same. This is completely Long Fei himself. But the aura was much more terrifying than Long Fei's, and he couldn't even find a suitable feeling to describe his feelings at this time. The only feeling is destruction. Good. This other self is filled with the power of destruction. I thought you could handle it by yourself, but I didn't expect that you would end up here. Since you can't do it well, don't do it. I'll help you handle the rest. The voice continued, and then coaxed Long. Come flying. Long Fei glared and snorted coldly. Then he punched the figure in front of him. However, an extremely terrifying scene occurred. This chaotic world seemed to be indestructible. Even though he punched out, no changes were caused. Not only that, even the chaotic energy filling the air in front of him has not dissipated. Don't waste your efforts. Don't say it's you. Even if the sea comes, it can't break this place. The other self said, and slowly came to Long Fei. Among the outside world, Mr. stared at Long Fei closely. He didn't dare to take it lightly. As long as Long Fei showed anything wrong, he would definitely turn around and leave without any hesitation. If it were Long Fei or himself, then everything might turn around. But if someone else comes out, it's over. Guess who will come out? But at this moment, a voice suddenly appeared in his ear. Mr. was stunned and turned around suddenly. He saw the sea standing next to him. Frowning, Mr. Still said, Are you really controlling everything behind the scenes? Dahai glanced at him. Don't say such nonsense. I also realized it later, and I am also a victim. Hey, so many years of hard work have been in vain. I always thought that I was just like you, a variable, so I did this. There were so many things, but I didn't expect that in the end they would all come to nothing in an instant. There was actually a pair of hands behind my back, and even I was deceived. Dahai looked regretful. Mr. frowned and stared at the sea blankly. Why doesn't he believe this? Are you a victim too? Mr. asked bravely. I can't believe this. Dahai nodded heavily and said with a sincere face, Yes, I am also a victim. Like you, I'm also the one who was deceived. As he said this, Dahai still pretended to sigh helplessly. It's terrible. I'm so awesome, yet I was tricked by someone. I really don't know how majestic and terrifying the person behind him is to tell such a big lie. Mr. Big was stunned. Upon hearing it, there's indeed nothing wrong with this. But he couldn't hear any jealousy in Daiko. It even always feels like Dahai is praising the person behind the scenes. Don't think about it. Now we are all grasshoppers on the same rope. Why not guess first? Is it Long Fei who comes out, or is he in existence under another kind of power? Dahai said, and their eyes fell on Long Fei again. Fly on. Chapter 58:27. Chapter 58:27. At this point, they can only wait. Even the sea, which can understand creation and penetrate the foundation of heaven and earth, cannot interfere with Long Fei in this state at this time. At this time in chaos, the figures of the two Long Fei were also intertwined. The sky and the earth roared, and there was chaos and chaos. This is an inevitable result. One wants to replace Long Fei, and the other wants to obliterate the other and control his true self. Therefore, when they meet, the two will fight to the death. Fortunately, this world is their inner world, with infinite mysteries and endless changes. It is enough to withstand their power, and there is no possibility of being penetrated. If it were in reality, I am afraid that the heaven and earth would have been penetrated long ago and ceased to exist. Boom, boom, boom. The two methods are exactly the same. The power of the system is now completely unable to keep up with the rhythm. The two of them also use the only method with great tacit understanding, the fist of destruction and the sword of annihilation, one after another. The entire sea of chaos was shaken up and down, constantly breaking and reorganizing in cycles. But both of them were extremely determined. They wanted to kill each other from the beginning, and they never thought about stopping. They would fight until death. In this chaotic space, there is no concept of time at all. In this battle between the two, any existence becomes false. Only infinite killing is real. Outside world, Dahai and Mr. Da stood quietly in the void. But as time passed, the expressions of the two people also changed. Should we all die together? Mr. Big muttered to himself. Long Fei in that state was extremely terrifying, but Long Fei himself was not simple either. It can be said that the two have the same means. The only difference is whether they are willing to take the initiative to use the power of annihilation. But Long Fei is also a ruthless person, and at this time, he will definitely have no reservations. What he is afraid of now is that both of them will use that kind of power to annihilate everything and die together. It's impossible. That kind of power is terrifying, but neither Long Fei nor the other self hidden in his sea of consciousness are outside that kind of power. Therefore, there is no possibility of perishing together. Now, just look at them both who can take a step back first. Dahai directly denied Mr. Da's guess and opened his mouth to analyze. Mr. Da frowned, but did not refute Dahai's words. He and Long Fei have not been together for a long time, and his biggest understanding is that Long Fei is an unstable factor and has the power of destruction. As for Long Fei's temperament, he definitely doesn't know as much as Dahai. Then who do you think will come out? After pondering for a few moments, Mr. Da asked. Dahai smiled softly. Whoever gives in first will become a subordinate. Based on my understanding of Long Fei, what comes out is probably the body of disaster existing in his body. Dahai said, actually, he may not be the cause of the disaster. Mr. Da said in a low voice. After all, he and Long Fei already had this guess in their previous discussion. After all, he was a variable in the disaster, but as a variable, when he and Long Fei entered that state, he had no way to deal with it. Although he is a variable, nothing can be changed. It is difficult for him not to doubt. Dahai obviously heard what he said. His eyebrows sank, and an obscure light flashed in his eyes. But Mr. Da didn't see this. Boom! Suddenly, the void shook. An inexplicable force swept across the sky. The next moment, Long Fei opened his eyes directly. His eyes flashed with indifference to all sentient beings. Hiss! In an instant, Mr. Da took a breath of cold air. This kind of gaze does not belong to Long Fei. In other words, what comes back may be the catastrophic body in that state. As soon as this thought came to his mind, he felt his whole body numb and his steps became heavy. But there is no way. His cultivation is not enough to support him to escape unscathed in this state. Dahai's face also became serious, and he looked Long Fei up and down. But before he could speak, a fist was directly reflected in his eyes. Boom! The fist light shook the sky, and the terrifying breaking power suddenly erupted in the void. Dahai also reacted in an instant, moved his feet, and suddenly retreated. But this punch seemed to lock him in, and he was pursued relentlessly. He ran after him, but there seemed to be nowhere to escape. Mr. Da was left standing in the void with a stunned look on his face. Huh, something's wrong. If it's the body of disaster in Long Fei's body, he shouldn't be so hostile to the sea. He was confused. If it is normal for Long Fei to be hostile to Dahai. After all, in their previous speculation, Long Fei was the party being calculated. The mastermind behind this is most likely Dahai. But if it is a disaster body, it is indifferent to everything. In his eyes, the sea is just a powerful creature. He is not hostile to anything, because his existence is to destroy. Therefore, as soon as Long Fei's mind returned, he launched a fierce attack on the sea, which actually made him doubtful. But he still didn't dare to define it, and could only look at the void coldly. In the void, the two figures could no longer be seen, and they had disappeared into the void and entered the sky beyond the sky. Obviously, Dahai doesn't want to fight Long Fei in this world. In that case, there is no need to talk about the apocalypse disaster. The two of them are disasters and can destroy everything. The scene changed, and there was nothingness and nothingness beyond the sky. This place is empty for thousands of miles, and there is no breath at all. is pure nothingness. Dahai's footsteps also stopped, and when he turned around, he slapped a palm. Boom! Palms and fists collided in the void, making a terrifying explosion sound. Immediately, circles of destruction ripples formed, scattering across the world. Wherever he passed, even nothingness became an illusion, as if it had been penetrated. But soon, nothingness was reshaped, because nothingness itself does not exist. Even after it is torn apart, it is still nothingness. You're not pretending at all. If you were the cause of the disaster, you would not take action against me. Right, Long Fei? Dahai said softly, with a calm tone. Long Fei didn't respond, just snorted coldly. Then, he summoned a field sword in his hand. The only sword. Without any hesitation, he directly broke through the void, blooming billions of rays of light, illuminating the void. Dahai curled his lips, shook his head slightly, then stretched out his hand to condense a sword and slashed into the void. Two sword lights suddenly spread across the sky and the earth, as if they were about to cut through the void, exuding endless terror. Brush! Almost at the same time, their swords collided together in nothingness. Rumble! Rumble! This time it was even more terrifying. The entire void was penetrated, shining power into the real world, and the endless galaxies began to shatter. However, both of them stopped with a tacit understanding and stopped this trend. You are much stronger. After the sword light dissipated, Dahai stared at Long Fei and said quietly, You are nothing more than that. Long Fei responded. Originally, Long Fei might be on a different level from Dahai, but this time he seemed to have undergone a transformation, as if he had already melted the power that was the cause of the disaster and took action to create it. Do you have any misunderstandings about me? Let me tell you, you must not make blind guesses. Among the 4 categories in the universe, I am really a variable. Dahai continued. I don't believe it. Long Fei replied without even looking. Chapter 58:28. Chapter 58:28. Long Fei's face was expressionless and cold. Will the sea explain? Based on his knowledge of the sea, he is not such a person. If you can do it, there will be no beeping. He always appeared in front of everyone with a superior attitude. From the first time I met him until now, there has never been an exception. He is like a chess player, and all living beings are just pawns on his chessboard. Even Long Fei is just a chess piece that can be beaten and killed. But now he actually opened his mouth to explain. This is completely unreasonable. Why are you like this? I advise you to be kind. Dahai looked helpless, feeling a little lost, and Long Fei couldn't get enough of it. I won't listen to advice. As for you, stop talking nonsense and fight again. Long Fei's eyes were cold, and he didn't even think about stopping at this moment and taking action again. Stop fighting, it's meaningless. Although I can't suppress you now, your methods can't do anything to me. It's useless to continue fighting. Dahai said. He is not afraid of Long Fei. Although the power displayed by Long Fei was very strong, it had improved a lot compared to before and was already approaching his level. But the infinite approach still never crosses that level. Therefore, he is still invincible. However, now he wanted to suppress Long Fei lightly, but he couldn't do it. But Long Fei was unmoved at this time, as if he couldn't listen to a word of Dahai's words, and just bullied him. Dahai's eyes darkened, with a mix of helplessness and anger. For many years, no one has been able to disturb his mood, but now, Long Fei has successfully destroyed his mentality. But there is no way. If the dragon flies up, then we have to fight. Time passed, I don't know how long it took, and calm finally returned to the void. This piece of nothingness was completely destroyed. It cycled through constant reorganization and destruction. In the end, it was completely ruined and could not even be reorganized. And Long Fei and Dahai finally stopped. But at this moment, Long Fei was miserable. The physical body has been broken several times and is dripping with blood. Although Dahai is much better, he is still seriously injured, his clothes are torn, and he has long lost his original calmness and calmness. But it can be seen that Long Fei is still completely defeated. Enough of the fighting. I told you not to fight, but you didn't listen. Now you are stupid. Dahai mocked mercilessly. Long Fei's body, which was limp in the void, stiffened. The next moment, he got up directly. Then come again. Dahai. Dahai suddenly regretted why he had to get high when he had nothing to do. Stop. Calm down first. I know why you took action. You think I am the calamity, and you have been scheming to make you take the blame, so you are in a difficult mood, right? But you are wrong. If I am the calamity itself, there is no need for this at all so strenuous. Dahai said. Long Fei paused. Maybe you want to find a sense of accomplishment from it. Asking in return, Long Fei still had disbelief in his eyes. It's not necessary. At my level, I don't care about these low-level fun at all. Think about it. Would you be excited about destroying a small world now? Dahai asked back. It's impossible. Your stance determines your attitude. Now you're the only ceiling, and you're only one step away from the next level. It can even be said that you have already stepped into that realm with 1 foot. Even if you want to take this level with your means, one Fong Tiandi collapsed easily. There's no sense of accomplishment in something you can do with just a wave of your hand. Dahai continued. Long Fei fell silent. He couldn't deny what Dahai said. The doubts in my heart gradually dissipated. I want an explanation. Long Fei continued. Dahai was stunned, but did not speak directly. Instead, he looked at Long Fei with interest, and then said, I can give you an explanation, but I just want to explain it to Long Fei. But now whether you are Long Fei or not is still unknown. Dahai said, his eyes suddenly sharp, like a long knife falling on Long Fei. I am Long Fei. There is no need to explain. If it were him, do you think he would beeping here with you so much? Long Fei responded. Dahai. Dahai originally wanted to discuss Long Fei, but he didn't expect that Long Fei would rebel against him. But this is true. He had seen Long Fei in that state. That is a dehumanizing existence. All things in the universe are just simple existences in his eyes. He will not be moved by anything at all and ignores the common people. In other words, it was as if Long Fei had said it. If it had been that existence, he would not have said so much to him at this moment. How did you do it? Dahai pondered for a moment and then asked. If I die, he will die. He doesn't want to die, so he can only go back to that portal. However, I don't have much time. Long Fei said, which was an explanation to Dahai. What do you mean? Dahai suddenly looked serious. 10 days. I only have 10 days. This is the agreement I made with him. If I can't get everything done within 10 days, he will come out again. Long Fei said in a deep voice. Dahai narrowed his eyes. 10 days. With a murmur, Dahai looked at Long Fei as if he had made up his mind. Okay, then I'll give you an explanation. Outside the prehistoric world, Mr. Da is like an old monk in meditation, closing his eyes in the void. There was no way, he had no choice. Below is the catastrophe of prehistoric times, and the aura of annihilation envelopes the entire world. Even if he exists anciently, he cannot interfere in it. As for the battle between Long Fei and Dahai, he couldn't get involved. That kind of battle is already the pinnacle of this world, and with his existence, he is simply not qualified to enter. To put it simply, it was a high-end game. He was a good person, and it was an accident that he was lucky enough to become an assistant, so he must not waste it. But suddenly while waiting, there was a sudden change before his eyes. A layer of red light suddenly appeared in the prehistoric world, wrapped in the endless power of destruction. Moreover, there are countless data and characters hovering above it, constantly changing. Is this digitalization? In an instant, Mr. Da lost his composure. He was too familiar with this kind of power. In the previous place of origin, it was a world composed of data. And there, he is the master. But now, the prehistoric world has begun to be digitized, which makes it difficult for him to calm down. TSK, variable. This is a variable. Mr. Da said in a deep voice with gleaming eyes. Now this change brought him an unexpected surprise. He was still full of suspicion before, feeling that he was a marginal figure with no sense of existence when he entered the game. That was extremely scary. Being useless means being cannon fodder and can be eliminated at any time. But things are different now. The digitization of the prehistoric world means that the power he possesses finally has a use. Chapter 58:29. Chapter 58:29. This discovery surprised Mr. Da. Almost instantly, he stood up suddenly, with uncontrollable joy in his eyes. The wildly beating numbers in front of him were like family members to him. Here, yes, this parameter is the power that determines nirvana. With this parameter as the center and radiating out, the power of nirvana can envelope the world. But I can change it. If I can change this parameter, then nirvana will destroy it. It can be twisted with force. Mr. Big is too familiar with data. Countless years ago, he became the prophet of the land of origin. Whatever power any data carries, he can capture it with just one glance. Just at this moment, he realized the key to changing the prehistoric world almost in just one breath. Fortunately, this power has come in time. If another quarter of an hour passes, I am afraid that the power of annihilation will swallow up this world. Even if I take action, I will not be able to change it. But now, nothing is a problem. I not only want to reverse it, but I also want to reverse the flow of time and space. Mr. Da looked at the ancient world in front of him. He felt that his spring had finally come. He saw with his own eyes how much Long Fei cared about the prehistoric world. If he could reverse the prehistoric world and return everything to before the disaster, then Long Fei would definitely be grateful to him. Thinking of this, he became more and more excited. He was now sure that Long Fei was the one who came back this time. Otherwise, it would not have been possible to target Dahai. As soon as this idea came to him, he no longer hesitated. The next moment, he stretched out his hand a little and began to modify the data beyond nothingness. So, you want to use me as bait to attract the fifth type of existence in the world? Long Fei's face was extremely solemn. He looked at the sea, still with a look of disbelief in his eyes. To say that the heavens are in the fifth category is actually a bit flattering to ourselves. If we divide the levels, he is in the first category. The 4 categories of heavens that you know are all one level lower. Dahai said with a solemn expression. Long Fei also fell silent. He had no doubts about the truth of what Dahai said, but he couldn't find anything wrong with this explanation. In his explanation, there is an innate being in this endless universe. To be precise, it existed before the universe. Endless galaxies and worlds were born under his gaze. He defined this being as God. The apocalypse tribulation is just a process he uses to deny all existence. For example, Long Fei understood the 4 categories of heaven. It's just 4 assistants created by that being to help him complete this process. Dahai was aware of this existence a long time ago, and only started to make arrangements after he reached the realm of the Only One. Become a chess player yourself, and start a game with this existence that exists in the unknown. In other words, Long Fei's previous guess was correct. To a certain extent, the sea is the culprit. But what he did was a false destruction. The purpose is to deceive the unknown being. In this process, Long Fei became his pawn, executing the destruction. Even if what you said is true, are you sure that you will kill the other party when he comes out? Long Fei asked. This game is too big. If what Dahai said was true, they were now playing against the ultimate boss. This is all too familiar to Long Fei. It's done. The rewards are astounding. If you lose, you won't have to drop a level and start over, which means you will die directly. Don't worry about this. After I broke through to the realm of my true self, I analyzed that man's strength and found that he is about 50 to 50 equal to me. With you in the mix, it will be easy to kill him. Dahai said directly, but Long Fei frowned deeply. Although the sea has always been extremely stable. But this time, Long Fei had doubts in his heart. But before he could show it, Dahai's expression suddenly darkened. Damn it, my house was stolen. Dahai suddenly stood up, his eyes suddenly turned, and he looked out into nothingness. Long Fei was stunned for a moment, and then looked over. When he saw that the calamity of the prehistoric world was gradually dissipating, countless dead creatures returned to their true nature, and the aura of war and death began to disappear, he was stunned. He even saw many familiar figures through the void. Qingying, Tianxi, Tianxin, Ingi Longbatian, and King Shang. At this point, they came together. But there was no fight. Instead, everyone looked confused. It seems that they did not expect that such a reversal would occur at a time when they were on the verge of extinction. Have you been noticed, and are you trying to bring things back to order? Long Fei asked. For a moment, Long Fei believed a little more in what Dahai said before. No, I was robbed by a piece of shit. Dahai was extremely helpless. Long Fei frowned slightly, then turned his eyes and saw Mr. Da doing something with excitement. I understood immediately. Did something change happen? Dahai nodded. Sure enough, that guy is not simple. I have calculated everything. Variables are variables after all, and they will still dig holes for me at critical moments. Dahai looked helpless. In the original plan, when the prehistoric world was destroyed, Long Fei turned on the violent mode and directly destroyed the galaxy and buried everything with him. Then the being defined by the sea as God will awaken. After all, Long Fei did what he should do, and he would definitely not tolerate it. At that time, everyone will gather at the card table, play against each other, and directly determine the winner or loser. But now, the plan goes bankrupt. Directly and fundamentally disintegrate. Without the destruction of the prehistoric world, the cause of disaster carried by Long Fei would not have detonated. Even if Long Fei forced his way to destroy it, he would not be able to disturb that existence. In other words, Dahai has already lost this round. For a moment, Dahai's eyes fell on Mr. Da, with an urge to kill him. But he didn't see that Long Fei's eyes were inexplicably cold at this moment. But when he came to his senses, Long Fei returned to normal. Let's go. Since the plan is bankrupt, let's review it again. Oh, I'm so tired, Dahai said helplessly. In an instant, he stepped out of the void and headed in the direction of Mr. Da. Long Fei followed closely behind. At this time, Mr. Da is immersed in his own creation. A world could be changed so easily in his hands, which gave him an unprecedented sense of satisfaction. Moreover, this place is different from the place of origin. The place of origin is a world woven by data, but here, it is a real existence. Nowadays, a real world is woven with data to change the established destiny, which makes Mr. Da feel very fulfilled. It's like standing in the position of God, dominating everything. He was so immersed in it that he didn't even notice Long Fei and Dahai approaching. You're a dick. Suddenly, Dahai spoke. Mr. Big turned his head sharply. Seeing both of them appearing in front of him intact, their expressions were slightly surprised. But he didn't notice the coldness in Dahai's eyes. SOSO. You were right. Variables have appeared. Moreover, they appear in the field that I am best at. Long Fei, you can rest assured now. I have reversed the fate of the prehistoric world and changed everything. But I still need your help next. When the power of annihilation disappears, the Lord of Annihilation among the 4 categories will definitely not give up, so he will be left to you. Chapter 5830. Chapter 5830. Mr. Da talked eloquently, as if he was qualified to sit on the table and participate in the game. Long Fei didn't react much, but then he seemed to think of something and said, "Thank you for your hard work." Long Fei's tone was calm, even a little playful, and then he looked towards the sea. If there was no plan to get familiar with the sea, Long Fei should naturally show excitement. But now seeing the depressed expression on Dahai's face, Long Fei also restrained himself. At least, that's how it looks to the ocean. But Mr. Da didn't seem to notice it, and just said, "It's not hard. We are aliens, and helping you is also helping myself." Hey, Mr. Da is so humble when he says this. You are so awesome. Dahai suddenly spoke and mocked. In an instant, Mr. Da's face suddenly became embarrassed. If he couldn't tell something was wrong in Dahai's tone at this time, he would be an idiot. Damn it, is Dahai really the master of robbery? Now I helped Long Fei and made him unhappy. Mr. Da made a move, and layers of cold sweat began to break out on his forehead. Continue, don't stop. Let me take a good look at Mr. Big's methods. It's wonderful, it's so wonderful. that being in the land of Nirvana, who worked so hard to build such a big battle, was so easily dismissed. Mr. Big is disintegrated really awesome, Dahai said quietly, with a cold light escaping from his eyes. Mr. Big's expression was stiff. His face looked as embarrassed as if he had eaten shit. Subconsciously, he looked at Long Fei with pleading in his eyes. He is really afraid. If Dahai sees him unhappy, he can kill him with a backhand. And the only one he can rely on is Long Fei. Moreover, no matter what, he helped Long Fei this time, and Long Fei had no reason to refuse. But he was disappointed. Long Fei looked away and said calmly, "You continue. I will kill the Lord of Annihilation." With that said, Long Fei suddenly turned around, and where neither of them noticed, his eyes became cold again. The next moment, Long Fei's figure moved and flew directly towards the ancient world. At the same time, a roar came from the prehistoric world. Who did this? A roar came from the prehistoric world, extremely furious, as if carrying the overwhelming anger. Immediately afterwards, several figures appeared in the sky. Everyone looked at the void with empty faces. Long Fei looked at the people in front of him, and his eyes shrank slightly, as if something had affected his mood. Immediately, a cold light appeared in his eyes. "How dare you touch my woman?" Yes, several figures appeared in front of him, and Long Fei was no stranger to them. It was Yi Yurong, Nua Zhuanxiang, and Tu Shan Xiaoya. But at this time, their expressions were extremely cold, as if they had no memory of Long Fei. They just had cold faces. "Oomph. Your women? They have returned to the ruins and are now mine." At this time, the voice appeared again. Immediately afterwards, a figure emerged from the prehistoric world. As soon as he appeared, the entire void turned gray, as if wrapped in annihilation, leading him back to ruins. Long Fei's eyes were calm, with a hint of contempt in his indifference. "Then I'll beat you to death and let them return from the ruins." Long Fei responded coldly. "Beat me to death? Do you have the strength?" The Lord of Annihilation responded coldly. He was not afraid of Long Fei. After all, he once reversed the origin of heaven in the prehistoric world and suppressed Long Fei. Moreover, he is also one of the four categories, the master of all things returning to ruins, so he naturally has his own confidence. "Then give it a try," Long Fei said coldly. The next moment, Long Fei punched directly into the void. Boom! Thousands of feet of fist light shot into the void, carrying a violent force that destroyed everything and rushed down. Oomph! The gate to the ruins. The Lord of Annihilation gave a cold shout, then raised his hand to create a portal. Within the portal, the terrifying power of returning to ruins surged like a huge wave, flowing out continuously. Then it turned into a ferocious beast that wreaked havoc in the sky. In an instant, the two forces collided. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the prehistoric beasts transformed from the power of Goeishu collapsed one after another. However, the power of Long Fei's punch did not seem to exert the power of destruction and actually began to collapse under the submersion of the power of Goeishu. For a moment, Long Fei's eyes narrowed. At the same time, a look of disbelief appeared on Mr. Da's face in the void. He had seen with his own eyes how strong Long Fei was. I thought that when Long Fei faced the Lord of Annihilation, he could suppress it with just a pinch, but he didn't expect that the other party could disintegrate Long Fei's power so easily. That's all you are. How awesome do I think you are? You open and close your mouth to kill me. Do you have the ability? The Lord of Annihilation mocked. Long Fei remained unmoved. I hope you still have the courage to say this later. The power of returning to ruins is a bit interesting, but that's it. Long Fei responded. Then, in an instant, his breath suddenly changed. The violent aura in his body disappeared and was replaced by a kind of indifference. Extreme indifference. The next moment, he slowly raised his hand, and a black hole seemed to be brewing in his palm. Immediately afterwards, the power of returning to the ruins between heaven and earth suddenly surged toward Long Fei's palm like a storm sweeping across it. Moreover, Long Fei's palm seemed to have infinite space, and he would not reject anyone who came, but he would swallow up all the power in just a moment. This scene made the eyes of Dahai and Mr. to change in the void. Is he really Long Fei? Mr. said quietly. Before, he thought it was Long Fei who came back, but now, Long Fei used this power lightly, making him unsure. Dahai nodded slightly, thinking about something, but did not respond. Mr. glanced at the sea and did not dare to say anything more. At this time, the one who has changed the most is naturally the Lord of Annihilation. The power of returning to ruins is his foundation. It can return all things to ruins and make all things disappear. It is an unsolvable rule. Under the Only One, there is no possibility of survival. But now, Long Fei was able to swallow up this kind of power, which made him feel terrified. Although he knew that Guishu was the only one who would not die. But there is absolutely no way it could be disintegrated in such an understatement. What's even more terrifying is that the vortex in Long Fei's hand is still enlarging, and the terrifying devouring power coming from it is encompassing the entire void. At this moment, the Lord of Annihilation felt panic in his heart. He felt that if he continued, even his door to the ruins would be swallowed up. And this gate of return to ruins is the foundation of his strength. If even the gate of return to ruins is swallowed up, then there will be a dead end waiting for him. Come on, kill him for me. You are his women, and he will never kill him. The Lord of Annihilation panicked and began to order Yurong and others to take action. The three of them seemed to be dominated, and they took action directly the moment his voice fell. Swish, brush, brush. 3 rays of light shone brightly in the void, and their only power suddenly fell into the void. Chapter 58:31. Chapter 58:31. The power of Yurong and the 3 of them is extremely terrifying. After all, they are in the only realm. When you reach this state, you have transcended heaven and earth, and can destroy an entire world with just a single movement of your hands. Moreover, they all broke through to this realm because of the Lord of Nirvana. The aura of Nirvana was carried in their bodies. At this time, every move they made burst out with destructive power. Long Fei's face became colder and colder. He has been avoiding it and has not really taken any action. The power wasn't enough to really hurt him. But being pressed and beaten like this all the time, even the clay figurine was aroused. Subconsciously, a fierce light gathered in his eyes. Open your palms, and the swallowing black hole also condenses in your palms. In the void, Dahai, who was looking at Mr. Da with a mocking look on his face, suddenly shrank his eyes. He is getting more and more skilled in using this power. Dahai's voice was cold. No, to be precise, it's murderous intent. Mr. Da's expression was stunned. Originally, Dahai scolded him so much that he didn't even dare to fart, but he didn't feel any killing intent from Dahai. But at this moment, Dahai had murderous intention towards Long Fei. For a moment, he began to grasp the word see. Could it be that this Long Fei is really him in another state? If it is true, then he is too good at pretending. Mr. Big speculated in his mind, although he also had some doubts, such as the combat power displayed by Long Fei. Especially the power displayed before was such that the Lord of Annihilation had no way to deal with it, and had to let his men take action. But unfortunately, these people are the people closest to Long Fei. But during the battle, although Long Fei tried his best to restrain himself and was even passively beaten, he still caught the changes in Long Fei's aura several times. He had murderous intent. As we all know, Long Fei has nothing to say to his own people, especially his own women. How could he kill her? The only explanation is that he is not Long Fei. 1 year later, he looked towards the sea. But at this time, the murderous intention on Dahai had disappeared without a trace, and he returned to his previous calm, just looking at the void quietly. These people are playing too hard. They are really infernal. Mr. Da suddenly sighed in his heart. Long Fei was acting, and Dahai was also acting, but he seemed to be a fool floating between them. Ahem, do you think Long Fei is satisfied now? Mr. Da asked. He couldn't help it. He was more afraid of Long Fei than the sea. If it were Long Fei in another state, he would be truly murderous, and any existence in front of him would be meaningless. He doesn't bear any burden. As long as there is an emotional conflict with him, just say a word and do it directly. Although Dahai is a little stronger, he at least has his own rules for doing things and won't be so vicious. He makes some sense, although not much. After all, at their level, they're already transcendent and can do whatever they want. But Dahai has his own plan. He wants to end the apocalypse tribulation, so he will naturally consider more about some things. Because he himself is in the game. What's wrong? He has gone through so much. Is it reasonable for him to have such fighting power? Moreover, since he came out of the land of annihilation, it is also reasonable for him to be able to suppress the power of the Lord of Annihilation. Right? Dahai chuckled as if nothing happened. It was as if he was not the one who had the murderous intention before. Mr. Big is confused. Suddenly, he began to wonder why he came out. In this game, he thought he was one of the protagonists, but he didn't expect that he was so out of place now that he couldn't even figure it out. Watch carefully. But at this time, the sound of the sea continued to fall, the clouds were calm, and the wind was gentle, as if he was just a bystander. While the two were talking, Long Fei's battle was still going on. Just like before, Long Fei was being pressed and beaten. No action was taken the whole time. Even the devouring vortex that had been condensed before was now suppressed again. TSK, it seems that you still can't do it. In this case, you should die forever. The voice of the Lord of Nirvana also fell from the void. What followed was a world of silence that covered the sky and the sun. The breath of annihilation enveloped the void, spreading the breath of all things returning to ruins, replacing the original sky. This aura is extremely terrifying, wiping out the entire void. It seems that even nothingness cannot escape the fruit of annihilation, and everything is doomed. Even Eorong and the other three were not spared and were directly swallowed by this aura. Long Fei froze. You want to die? The purpose of the Lord of Nirvana is obvious, which is to take advantage of Long Fei's concern for a few people, and then repeat the world to open up the land of Nirvana for Long Fei. He just calculated that Long Fei would definitely not let it go. As long as a few people are absorbed into it, Long Fei will naturally enter Nirvana again. Looking for death? It's you who are looking for death. Although I don't know how you came out of my world of Nirvana, but this time, I don't believe you still have such strength. The voice of the Lord of Nirvana came from the void passed out. It is no longer possible to fight alone. Long Fei's power can restrain his power of annihilation. Only by enveloping him into annihilation can he be suppressed. And this is his surefire method. In the void, the sea is still calm, looking at the Lord of Nirvana in front of him, jumping up and down without any words. Mr. Da's eyes flashed with light. Then there was a gasp. At this moment, he could not analyze at all what kind of power was under this breath of silence. Unable to render data. In other words, the power of annihilation was beyond his ability, and he was unable to analyze and present it. This power is terrifying. It is much stronger than the power that shrouded the world before. Dahai glanced at him. It's normal. Now he started to fight hard. If he doesn't have some means to press the bottom of the box, then he has no chance at all. You mean Long Fei will be in danger? Mr. Da asked. At this moment, there was a bit of urgency in his voice. What? Weren't you still doubting Long Fei's identity before? Now if he is killed by the Lord of Annihilation, wouldn't it be exactly what you want? Dahai said leisurely. Don't talk nonsense. You are slandering me. I was brought out by Long Fei. We are on the same front. How could I hope that something would happen to him? Mr. Da quickly denied it. This is impossible to admit. Although he did think so in his mind, he knew better that if something happened to Long Fei, it would most likely be his turn next. Now the suspicion of Dahai has not been cleared, and it is still unknown who is the master of the robbery. He doubted Long Fei, and naturally he didn't trust Dahai either. Only when two people are alive will both parties be afraid. Hey, don't worry. Long Fei will not die so easily. But one of the four types of heavens is indeed going to die. Dahai's eyes glowed with cold light. Mr. Big was silent. If Long Fei is not dead, it is self-evident who will die. But he was even more confused. Who was the cold look in Dahai's eyes at this moment? Chapter 58:32. Chapter 58:32 in the void. Long Fei looked at the spreading world of annihilation. The aura of annihilation is like a rolling torrent, containing great terror, and the tribulation light spreads one after another. It is no exaggeration to say that the power that can emit calamity light is already the limit between heaven and earth. In addition, the power of the Lord of Annihilation itself brings him closer to death. In just a moment, this power brewed up emotions that made all living beings infinitely frightened. And similarly, Long Fei's eyes were filled with frost. Dragon has reversed scales. Those who touch me will never end well. Long Fei's voice was cold. Now that we have it, not only your people, but also you, will not end well this time. I will make you die completely this time. The voice of the Lord of Nirvana fell again. Moreover, do you still have the intention to show off in front of me now? They are not you, and the current world of Nirvana is not the place you entered before. With their strength, they cannot survive in it for a moment. You continue to talk, they died more completely. The Lord of Nirvana continued to speak confidently. Of course, if you can watch them die, then I will admit it. He just thinks that he has figured out Long Fei now. Judging from the emotion shown by Long Fei, he would never ignore these people. And this is his chance. They won't die. Your world of Nirvana is not as invincible as you think. Long Fei responded. Immediately afterwards, Long Fei's figure turned and disappeared directly into the sky. Of course, he chose to enter the game personally. No matter what the Lord of Annihilation's plan was, to Long Fei, he didn't care. It was impossible for him to turn a blind eye. That was his woman, and he would naturally not give up. The Lord of Annihilation saw Long Fei's figure disappearing into it, and his mood became even more arrogant. Ha! What can you do if you can fight? Aren't you going to be killed by me? As long as you enter it, you will die. The advocate of annihilation laughs wildly. Laughs the sound swept the world. Idiot. But on the other side, the sea is mercilessly mocking. Mr. raised his head, frowned, and said nothing. There is no need to say more about who this sentence belongs to. But what he didn't understand was why Dahai had such confidence that Long Fei would be able to break the situation. At this time, in the prehistoric world, several figures stood side by side. Ying, Qingying, Tianxi, Tianxin, Long Batian, and Dixian. He's getting stronger again. I feel like he's approaching another level now. Ying said. He was summoned by Long Fei. At first, he could still sense Long Fei's strength, but at this moment, he had no idea. Long Fei's cultivation level has exceeded him too much and is beyond the range of his perception. Of course, it doesn't matter who I am, Dixian said. Although he is currently carrying Dixian's body, his spirit is his own, and he is really the son of Long Fei from the ancient temple. Ying was non-committal, but didn't say anything. On the contrary, Long Batian was not happy and started to say vigorously. Yin Yang said, Humph, I don't know what his identity is now. Maybe he is the cause and effect of the apocalypse tribulation. What's there to be proud of? TSK, jealousy makes people look beyond recognition. Do you want to listen to what you are saying? Of course, Dixian was not used to it. Now he and Long Batian are at odds, saying that Long Fei just can't do it. Senior, even Senior Dahai, doesn't have a definition for this matter. It's a bit malicious for you to say this. Tianchi said, he has now changed his mind and no longer helps Dahai. But naturally, he also knew that Dahai had made speculations about Long Fei. He felt that he had to show his own attitude, otherwise he would not be able to tolerate him here. I believe in Long Fei. Qingying said, I believe in my master's wife. Tianxin said, I believe him. Yingya added, Long Batian. Although Long Batian was unhappy, he could only shut up now, otherwise he would offend the public. Dixion looked at Long Bation's defeat and couldn't help but sneered. I heard that you forced my father to come here. How about now? Seeing that my father is getting further and further away now, you are not even qualified to sit on the table. This isn't the seed gap very sour? Long Bation's eyes widened angrily. You little bastard, you are looking for death. Long Bation was angry, but as soon as he opened his mouth, he felt several eyes from around him falling on him. You can do it. You are awesome. I can't afford to offend you. Long Bation snorted coldly and had to lower his head. But Long Fei didn't know all this. At this time, Long Fei was already immersed in the world of silence. I have to say that the Lord of Nirvana is worthy of being one of the 4 categories in the heavens. This power of Nirvana is truly terrifying. Even at this time, Long Fei could feel a little depressed. In front of him, Eorong and others were wrapped in the power of annihilation. Their vitality was being devoured infinitely, and they were already on the verge of death. And deeper still, there's a figure. It is the Lord of Nirvana. He is formless and omnipresent. But at this time, he condensed his own incarnation and came here just to see how Long Fei died. If you don't come in, I really don't know you. But now that you are here, this is your burial place. The Lord of Annihilation spoke, like a judgment, directly judging Long Fei's life and death. Give definition. Long Fei didn't respond. One more word would be enough for this kind of thing. With his temper, if he faced such a person, he would just slap him to death. But now, he wants to save people first. Turning his eyes, Long Fei raised his palm. A black hole slowly emerged in the palm of his hand. That all-devouring power burst out again. Moreover, this time Long Fei had no reservations. Before, outside, under the nose of the sea, it was really difficult for him to use this power. But now, there is no scruple. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the entire void suddenly became chaotic, and the power of annihilation that had enveloped Eorong and the others collapsed silently. As if they were rootless duckweeds, they began to lose their support as the devouring power in Long Fei's palm exploded, and they all turned toward him. It came from the black hole condensed in Long Fei's palm. In just a moment, the power dissipated without a trace. Eorong and the 3 of them have also returned to normal, and the vitality in their bodies is no longer lost. But with just a glance, they came towards Long Fei again. Long Fei didn't realize it, but when a few people came closer, he raised his hand and dropped it. Boom! The devouring power turned into a palm that covered the sky, directly suppressing the 3 of them. Afterwards, the devouring power continued to escape from the black hole in the palm, turning into chains and blocking several people. But Long Fei did not continue to take action. Be honest, wait until I kill this old guy first, and then take you away. Long Fei said, no longer paying attention to everyone, but raised his head to look at the Lord of Nirvana. Do you think this is a killing plot you arranged for me? You're overthinking it. If you didn't want to hide to see how I killed you, you wouldn't even have the chance to use this power. Long Fei said, and then the figures gathered together, plucked onions from the dry land, and stood in the void. Chapter 58:33. Chapter 58:33. Long Fei seemed to have changed into a different person in an instant. The moment he soared into the sky, he exuded a terrifying aura. This breath is not within heaven and earth, like an outsider's power, full of endless chill. On the other side, the Lord of Annihilation's expression instantly became extremely embarrassing. Long Fei was right. He really thought that this was the killing plot he had arranged for Long Fei. The people around him are the people Long Fei cares about, and based on his understanding of Long Fei, he is a person who cares very much about his own people. So he just wanted to use Long Fei's concern to restrain Long Fei. But he didn't guess. Long Fei has always been pretending, but it was just for the sea to see. Now that Long Fei truly showed his aura, he felt terrified. It is already infinitely close to the Only One. This is not at the same level as what he showed before. As soon as this aura appeared, he felt as if he was about to die. How is that possible? I am the Lord of Annihilation. I have always been the master of destruction. Why would there be power that can make me feel death? The Lord of Annihilation's voice was full of disbelief. He has existed for eternity and has dominated the destruction of heaven and earth. The sun, moon, and stars have experienced death several times in his hands. He thought that he was no longer within death and existed forever. But at this moment, this feeling reminded him clearly. It's not that he's immortal. It's just that he hasn't met anyone who can make him die. And now, this person appears. You will not die because I am gone. In this world, except for the sea, no one I let die will be able to live. Long Fei's voice was cold. He has now developed a desire to kill. Especially the existence of the Lord of Annihilation has nothing to say. Daring to threaten him with his woman will lead to death. The Lord of Annihilation fell silent, and his figure began to flicker. At this time, he doesn't have any of the arrogance he had before. Can't get mad at all. The threat of death was right in front of him, so real that all his thoughts disappeared. All he wanted at this moment was to escape from death as soon as possible. If you escape, you still have a chance of survival, but if you continue to stay here, you will die. But before he could make any move, Long Fei suddenly moved. As he raised his hand, a devouring force burst out directly from Long Fei's hand. In an instant, the face of the Lord of Annihilation suddenly changed. This was the source of his death. This kind of aura is fundamentally different from the devouring power that Long Fei displayed before, and it is much more tyrannical. What's even more terrifying is that this kind of power seems to have no power to restrain it, and it only takes a moment to cover the void of heaven and earth. Even if this world is his place of annihilation, it cannot stop this power at all. Boom, boom, boom. The heaven and earth are shaking. The power of devouring is extremely terrifying. It seems to be a force outside of everything and can restrain everything. Even if the Lord of Nirvana is one of the 4 categories in the heavens, he cannot escape being devoured. Visible to the naked eye, the terrifying devouring power fills the world. Devouring all the power of annihilation, the entire world was transformed into a space with only the power of devouring in an instant. Empty and dark. Only the swallowing vortex dominates everything, becoming the only color in the sky and the earth. How is it possible? What kind of power is this? There is no such existence among the 4 categories in the heavens. The Lord of Annihilation's voice was horrified. Now, he felt like he knew nothing about heaven and earth. Are the 4 categories of heavens said to be the strongest beings? Are they said to have the strongest power? Why now, as soon as Long Fei takes action, everything changes. The idea of escape in his heart was even more crazy, but a shackle seemed to appear between heaven and earth, imprisoning him tightly. The so-called power of annihilation is like a bubble. It cannot stir up any storms at all. It is completely useless. Even this power cannot break free. Stop. I admit defeat. Killing me will do you no good. All I have done is follow the will of Ishur. If you kill me, you are disobeying his will, which will do you no good. The benefits may even make you fall into in endless terror. The Lord of Nirvana spoke quickly. At this moment, facing Long Fei's power, he was really afraid. This kind of power crushes everything. His attempt to survive from this power is nothing more than a dream. And right now, the only way to possibly survive is to beg for mercy. Long Fei remained unmoved, but his eyes suddenly shrank. At the beginning, he didn't know what kind of existence this was, but these words coming from a Lord of Nirvana proved that there was really a pair of black hands behind it that controlled everything. Inexplicably, Long Fei thought of what Dahai said before. Dahai entered the situation with his own body, trying to lure that existence out. But in Dahai's mouth, he didn't seem to know what kind of existence that was beyond everything. It is precisely because of this that Long Fei was moved when the Lord of Annihilation said these words. The sea is not capable of concrete existence. You, the Lord of Nirvana, say you have seen it? Is it possible? And this moment of hesitation made the other party seem to sense something. I know that whether it is you or the sea, you are all looking for ways to prevent the outbreak of the apocalypse. But no matter what you do, it will be of no avail. Only that existence can deny everything. So you can't kill me. If you kill me, you will offend that person, and then maybe the apocalypse will come early. The Lord of Annihilation seized this opportunity and said crazily. He knew very well that this was his only bargaining chip. There's always something you care about, right? He didn't believe that Long Fei couldn't care less about the apocalypse tribulation. Sure enough, as he said these words, the devouring intention that filled the void also stopped at this moment, as if Long Fei was already afraid. Seeing this, the Lord of Annihilation was delighted. Long Fei, I have to say that you really exceeded expectations. When I dragged you into the land of Nirvana, I thought you would never have a chance to come out. Unexpectedly, you not only came out, but your strength also improved. You have already infinitely close to that level. But it's a pity that approaching is useless, not after all. If you really get to that point, maybe no one can stop you no matter what you want to do. But now you still can't. If you can't take that step, you can't be one and act recklessly. The Lord of Annihilation started. He felt that Long Fei must have been shocked by his words now and did not dare to take action again. But Long Fei frowned slightly. There seemed to be a flash of doubt in his eyes. He doesn't understand. Is there any necessary connection between the two? Is there any necessary connection between me killing you and the apocalypse tribulation? If I don't kill you, the apocalypse tribulation will not come? Or if I kill you, the apocalypse tribulation will come immediately? After pondering for a moment, Long Fei asked again. The face of the Lord of Annihilation changed, and his mood that had just relaxed suddenly became tense again. The hot killing intent seemed to burn him. Does Long Fei really not care about the person behind him? Chapter 58:34. Chapter 58:34. The Lord of Nirvana panicked. He had never thought that it would be such a result before. He thought that if he took out the one behind him, as long as he revealed the identity of that person, Long Fei would be afraid and all the crises would be solved. Unexpectedly, Long Fei didn't follow the routine at all and just flipped the table. Long Fei, are you really not afraid of the one behind me coming? The Lord of Nirvana asked in return. Long Fei's emotional changes in an instant made him once again enveloped in despair. In fact, he already regretted it a little at this time. If you had known what you were pretending to be just now, wouldn't you have just left? Yes, he had a chance to leave just now, but now it's gone. Long Fei's intention to kill him has never changed, and it was only temporarily postponed because of a piece of news he brought. Now, it was obvious that Long Fei didn't care at all. I'm afraid he won't come. Do you think you're the only one who knows there is such an existence? Even someone like you can come into contact with it. Do you think Dahai and I will be completely unaware? Long Fei's voice was cold, with a strong sense of disdain. Good. At this time, Long Fei did have the idea in his heart that he wanted to see what happened. Originally, he had some doubts about Dahai's words, but now he got confirmation from the Lord of Annihilation. What to do? Of course, I wanted to use this method to find out this figure. Therefore, if killing the Lord of Annihilation could make the other party aware of it, Long Fei would naturally be more willing to do it. At this time, the Lord of Annihilation was immediately stunned, confused, afraid he won't come. These 4 words fell in his ears as if they were a death order. He didn't understand where Long Fei's confidence came from. This kind of existence was a terror that no one dared to face. He was actually thinking of pulling the other party out. But now, there is such an opportunity in front of him. As long as he kills himself, it will definitely attract the attention of that will. No, Long Fei, I think we can talk. Killing me will not do you any good. On the contrary, if you keep me, I can pass on the other person's will to you in the future. Yes, that person caused the apocalypse tribulation. Haven't you always wanted to stop the apocalypse tribulation? You have to start with him. Keep me. I can be an undercover agent. The Lord of Annihilation went straight to full fire, and he would speak out without reservation as long as it might make Long Fei afraid. After all, he is also afraid of death. I wasn't afraid before because I thought I wouldn't die. But now it's different. Long Fei told him that anyone would die in front of Long Fei. Therefore, now I don't care about face at all and just admit my defeat. Long Fei was naturally unmoved. A flash of sarcasm flashed in his eyes, and then for a moment he covered the sky with one hand, controlling the endless devouring vortex to sweep across the world. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the whole world began to roar, resounding in the void like a great bell. The face of the Lord of Annihilation changed instantly at this moment. A touch of fear was also rising in his heart. The feeling of imminent death is getting stronger and stronger. And Long Fei's voice also fell at this time. What's so troublesome? If you can't solve the trouble, then you will be the one who caused the trouble. I don't need to care about his will. You will die just like him. Long Fei said coldly, kill meaning from every word it flowed out of his eyes. To him, it seemed as if all living beings were already the same. As long as he is dead, there will be no accidents. But when these words fell into the ears of the Lord of Annihilation, they were enough to subvert his understanding. At this moment, he only had one concept left in his understanding of Long Fei. Crazy? If you're not crazy, how dare you say such a thing? What kind of existence it is only exists in his imagination. He just knows that that kind of existence is the only one, the real one. There is no second one between heaven and earth. The beginning before everything begins. But now, Long Fei is actually thinking of killing such a being. He really didn't know where Long Fei got such courage. Unfortunately, just as his thoughts flashed across his mind, a vortex suddenly descended and swallowed his body directly, leaving him no chance to even speak. Boom! The overwhelming power of devouring directly trapped the Lord of Annihilation within it. No, the Lord of Annihilation let out an unwilling wailing. But it's useless. This devouring power is a power outside of everything. Even Nirvana is in this world. Therefore, in front of this power, his power is equivalent to nothingness. There is no possibility of competing at all. He just instantly smelted. Boom, boom, boom. The figure of the Lord of Nirvana was like this incineration, and rays of Nirvana light began to erupt from his body, but did not dissipate, but was directly enveloped by the devouring aura, and then merged into the devouring power. The world also began to become strange during this moment of devouring, and endless sorrow poured in from the unknown void. Long Fei slowly raised his head, but remained unmoved. At this moment, he actually felt an inexplicable while shrouding himself. And at the same moment, in the outside world, the sea also looked fiercely towards the far-reaching and empty void. That one, Dahai's eyes suddenly condensed, and a sense of killing suddenly raged through him. This change frightened the big gentleman on the side. "What's wrong with you?" Mr. Da asked tentatively, submissively. He faced the sea now, more cautiously than before. There is no way. If Long Fei is not here, he has no backing. With Long Fei here, he still has some confidence, but now he is still more reliable. Dahai ignored it, staring intently into nothingness. Then the next moment, his figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared in an instant. Huh? Did he discover something? Is there anything that would make him still afraid? Mr. Da breathed a sigh of relief, but it's also full of doubts. Is there anything more meaningful than the battle with Long Fei right now? Doesn't he care if Long Fei is still him? But it is destined to be an unsolvable question. There's no way. It's not the same level. Although he has the reputation of being one of the 4 categories of the heavens, his strength has not reached that level at all. So now, whether facing Long Fei or the sea, he has to be cautious. Just like this, he didn't feel anything different at all. At this time, there was silence in the heaven and earth. No, it should be swallowing the world at this time. The light of annihilation in this world has disappeared, leaving only some residual images of the Lord of Annihilation. His power finally gradually dissipated under Long Fei's devouring power. But at this moment, the Lord of Annihilation suddenly shouted, "Ha ha ha, I understand. It's you, it's you." After exclamation, his power was completely exhausted and he fell completely silent. But Long Fei's eyes became complicated. What did he find? Long Fei had some doubts in his eyes and fell into silence. Chapter 58:35. Chapter 58:35. The Lord of Annihilation must have seen something before dissipating. Long Fei didn't believe that he had inexplicable emotions before he died. Although he was afraid of death, he was too afraid to do such a meaningless thing. But Long Fei couldn't figure out what he saw to make him look like that. Yes, if it was just a word from him, Long Fei could ignore it. But there was a sharpness in his eyes that struck straight to the soul, which moved Long Fei's heart. For a moment, Long Fei fell silent, looked into the void, and remained silent for a long time. It wasn't until the world of silence in front of him began to gradually dissipate that Long Fei woke up from the silence. After a while, Long Fei covered the sky with one hand, creating a void of heaven and earth, and brought Eorong and others out. So when he came out, there was only himself. In the void, only Mr. Da is waiting, and the figure of the sea has disappeared. Where's the sea? Long Fei asked. This isn't right. With Dahai's mind, he should be extremely concerned about himself. He has always had doubts about his identity, and since he had used that kind of power without hesitation before, he would definitely have more doubts. What Long Fei didn't expect was that when he came out at this time, there was no trace of the sea. He seemed to have sensed something before, and then left with a sullen face. Mr. De said. He was also looking at Long Fei at this time. To be honest, he still has doubts about Long Fei's identity. He now felt that he should not have come out of the place of origin at all. Talking about the 4 categories of heavens has now become a complete joke. There are 4 people, and I am the one who makes soy sauce. Of course, the Lord of Annihilation was even worse, as Long Fei was directly killed. Moreover, he felt that his situation was extremely dangerous now. Whether it is Long Fei or Dahai, they all have the strength to kill themselves. Especially now, Long Fei's identity is a mystery. It is no longer possible to tell whether he is himself or not. His methods had completely failed in front of Long Fei and were of no use at all. He can digitize any power, but at this time Long Fei has exceeded the limit. His power was no longer able to perform data analysis on Long Fei. To put it simply, Long Fei was beyond the limit of his abilities. Long Fei pondered slightly and looked into the void. Did he discover something? Long Fei muttered to himself. There's only one possibility for Dahai to abandon himself at this time, and that is that he discovered the existence he mentioned, an existence that is truly superior to all living beings and is the source of all things. At the same time, he also thought of the previous reaction of the Lord of Nirvana when he was about to die, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of solemnity in his heart. The Lord of Annihilation must have seen something, so he said those inexplicable words. And what he saw is most likely an existence that is different from this universe. Long Fei thought in his mind. As soon as he thought of this, he looked into nothingness, and without any hesitation, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared. Mr. Doe watched Long Fei leave, and the look in his eyes couldn't help but become a little confused, even distress. Damn it, I really lost my temper this time. What? The 4 categories of heaven and earth were promised to me, but now I am the one who makes soy sauce. Mr. Big looked helpless. Let alone the Lord of Annihilation. Long Fei has already been killed. But neither Dahai nor Long Fei were on the same level as him, as if he was not even qualified to serve at the table. If he had known that this was the case, he would rather stay in the world where the data originates. Even if it is false, at least he can sit back and relax. But now, he is like duckweed in the wind, and he might be caught at any time. Die. Especially witnessing the death of the Lord of Annihilation made the sense of crisis in his heart sore. Not to mention that Long Fei and Dahai each have their own secrets, and they might point their fingers at him at some point. Simply because the two of them had left one after another, he just felt it was inappropriate to leave him here. Does this still treat him as one of our own? But at this moment, figures suddenly came out of the wild world. Are you with Long Fei? A voice suddenly appeared. The violent muscles stirred up endless power, as if it could burst the void, and it was full of explosive atmosphere. He is none other than Long Batian. Now that the power of death that shrouded the prehistoric world has disappeared, he naturally couldn't hold back the loneliness in his heart and walked out. Of course, he was unaware of what happened here before. They were already outsiders when Mr. Big took action to digitize this world. To put it simply, they were no longer qualified to participate in this round at that time. Mr. Do was slightly startled when he saw such arrogant Long Batian. But when he looked at Long Batian, the emotion in his heart disappeared instantly. Without it, Long Batian is just the presentation of absolute data in his eyes. Health bar, strength, attributes. In other words, Long Batian is still under his control. Just like that, you dare to show off in front of him? When he thought of this, he looked over. Are you talking to me? Long Batian was stunned, and his eyes narrowed slightly. Where did this old man come from? So arrogant? In fact, this can't be blamed on him. Although he has been to the origin of the place, he also caused a turmoil in the origin. But that level is too low, and he is not even qualified to be noticed by Mr. Da. Even for Mr. Da, it was just a few parameters that had changed. Therefore, he didn't care at all about Mr. Da at this time. Of course, so does Mr. Big. He's just a little who can be digitized by me at a glance. How dare he show off in front of me? I can't defeat Long Fei, I can't defeat Dahai, and I can't defeat you? Of course, besides you. Is there anyone else here? Since you have been here, I would like to ask you, have you seen Long Fei? Long Batian is still arrogant. In his opinion, he was just an ordinary old man, and there was no need to care. See you, Mr. Big responded. Long Batian raised his eyebrows. So the crisis contact here is really related to him? At this moment, Long Batian's expression changed. He has never been inferior to others throughout his life, always fighting and comparing with Long Fei. He was even a little dissatisfied when Dahai told him that he was not even qualified to be a chess piece. But now there's a gap in my heart. He was powerless with the power he had before. But all crises were resolved in the hands of Long Fei, which already explained a lot of problems. But he was still unwilling to give up and asked, did Dahai take action and help Long Fei? Mr. Big shook his head, his eyes full of pity. Long Batian is a digital image in his eyes. Similarly, Long Batian's emotions will be presented to him in a special way. It is precisely because of this that he feels pitiful. At what level do you dare to compete with Long Fei? Chapter 5836. Chapter 5836. Naturally, Long Batian didn't know what Mr. Da was thinking. On the contrary, in his eyes, Mr. Da was just an old man without any cultivation. Maybe he has something to do with Long Fei, but he doesn't care. After all, Long Fei is Long Fei, and he is him. If he can't defeat Long Fei, why can't he still be arrogant in front of a little old man? At this time, Long Batian saw that Mr. Da was silent and even looked at him with an expression of extreme pity, and his heart sank. But instead of being cautious, he was filled with anger. Is Long Batian really dead? Now anyone dares to show off with him? What do you mean? Who gave you the courage to look at me like this? Long Fei. Long Batian looked at Mr. Da, and anger burst out in his eyes. He is now on the edge of time and space, his presence now diminishing. Ever since he confronted Long Fei through the time and space tunnel in the prehistoric world, he felt that he was no longer among the best. Later, he fought against Ing Yi and was ignored. He fought against Long Fei's son and was ignored again. The battle with Qing Ying, no, they didn't fight, but they were ignored all the same. He felt now that people related to Long Fei had begun to become arrogant and clamored in front of him. Can he bear this? He tolerated Long Fei's woman and son, and Ing was strong enough, so he also tolerated it. Now he can still be ignored by a little-known old man? No, absolutely intolerable. Mr. De frowned slightly, looking at the arrogant Long Batian in front of him. He was speechless. Where did this idiot come from? Don't you know what rank you are in? You just pretended to be in your world, but now you're pretending to him? Yes, in Mr. Da's opinion at this time, Long Batian is a domineering and arrogant person, and he's the kind of person who is already used to being arrogant in his own world and wants to step on everyone he sees. Now, needless to say, this kick has fallen on him. Damn it, I can't compare to the sea. I can't compare to Long Fei. I can't even compare to the dead lord of Nirvana. But I'm a body of variables, and you, a person who could be digitized by me, still dare to show off in front of me. The anger in Mr. Da's heart gradually rose. The next moment, he looked at Long Batian. Have you always been so pretentious? Where does your pride come from? Because you're second? Because you're stupid? Because you love to pretend? Mr. Da looked at Long Batian coldly, with contempt in his eyes. Long Batian frowned and looked at Mr. Da in disbelief. Are you talking about me? Long Batian asked back, with a look of disbelief on his face. How dare he say such a thing? Now in front of him, shouldn't he be submissive? Shouldn't we lower our posture and beg for mercy? Why did it become like this? But in just a few breaths, his heart was filled with anger, and he said in a deep voice, Do you know what you're talking about? Do you think you can do whatever you want with Long Fei covering you? Mr. Big was stunned. Long Fei covering himself? Immediately, he understood. It turns out that this guy suffered a loss at the hands of Long Fei, and now he wants to make up for it on himself? Dream. Thinking of this, he said, You are right. Long Fei is stronger than me. But I'm not a vegetarian. I am the prophet of origin, a variable in the 4 categories of the heavens. What about you? It's just a system. Push up, little Yakuza. Power is just a bunch of numbers in front of me. How dare you question me? Who gave you the courage? Mr. Da's posture was proud, and the caution in his heart disappeared. Yes, he belongs to the 4 categories of the heavens and is one of the most mysterious beings in the vast universe. Moreover, one is dead now. In other words, apart from Dahai and Long Fei, he is the most awesome now. Long Batian was silent, and suddenly he had a bad feeling in his heart. His intuition told him that he should leave immediately, otherwise trouble might occur. But the moment he had this idea in his mind, a figure suddenly walked out of the prehistoric world. It's DXIN. No, it should be said that he is Long Fei's son. DXIN looked at Long Batian, then at the old gentleman, and said, Go on, I've seen this from beginning to end. There can be no good between you today, and one of you must die. He doesn't mind watching the excitement. He didn't know Mr. Da's identity, but he could feel that the aura on Mr. Da's body was extremely strange. Although he couldn't see through his strength, the fact that he could appear here and witness everything as a bystander already showed that he was extraordinary. 1. Long Batian frowned. Why did he come out and get angry as soon as he came out? Was he trying to disgrace himself? You little bastard, just like you. Long Batian cursed angrily in his heart, secretly thinking that like father, like son, he was just like Long Fei, extremely shameless and annoying to look at. Mr. Da also began to look at him at this time. In just one glance, he could see the shadow of Long Fei. There must be an inextricable relationship between this boy and Long Fei. Whether he can offend him or not, he must not offend him. And it seems that he and these 2 fools are not going to deal with each other. In this case, why not just fulfill his wish and kill these 2 fools? Mr. Da analyzed in his mind. Immediately, he began to use his own strength to size up DXIN, but he was soon disappointed. Although DXIN has systematic power, there is another power deeper down that conceals his essence, and he cannot be digitized at all. At this moment, he was even more determined in his decision. Immediately, he shifted his gaze and looked at Long Batian. He is right. One of us must die today. I'm a big man in the place of origin, and I cannot insult you. Since you said something you shouldn't say, do it what not to do, then there will be a price to pay. Long Batian frowned deeper, but even more cautious. Mr. Da revealed his identity at this time, which made his expression confused. It's not like he hasn't been to the place of origin. However, his level was too low at the beginning and would not attract Mr. Da's attention at all, but this does not mean that he does not know about Mr. Da's existence. When he heard him reveal his identity, he suddenly realized that he had hit a brick wall. But now in front of DXIN, can he give in? Of course not. Thinking of this, he said, "Are you Mr. Da? And now you are with Long Fei? Then do you know who I am with?" Mr. Da was stunned and looked Long Batian up and down. "This is interesting. Are you starting to compete with others now? Who are you with?" Mr. Da said, with a hint of amusement in his eyes. He also wanted to see which could take a fancy to such a lowly person. Long Batian heard the contempt in Mr. Da's mouth, and a coldness flashed in his eyes. "Have you ever heard of the Only One? I'm not afraid to tell you. Behind me, there is the Only One. What about you? What? Level? Don't say it's you. Just even if he is Long Fei, what level is he?" Mr. Big was slightly startled. The moment Long Batian spoke, a figure already appeared in Mr. Da's mind. Good. It's the sea. But equally, he also had his own doubts. Why would a person like Dahai fall in love with such a loser? With Dahai's wisdom and scheming, he planned for eternity. Even Long Fei, him, and even more terrifying existences were part of his plan. But why would you let such a simple-minded guy with well-developed limbs follow you? But how did he know that Long Batian was not like this before? It was just because Long Fei's battle gave him such a heavy blow that he was completely ruined now. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.